Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another entertaining and exciting round of intense racing action in the UK Sim Racing Community Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly hosted by none other than SimRacing International. Round number 8 has come around, 3 rounds remain in the championship, and with all our championships looking wide open at the very moment, could this be a round that serves to mix things up or keep the status quo? Because here we are in Germany for the Nürburgring Grand Prix Tracker or the Grand Prix circuit. Opened in 1984 as a means of relocating Formula 1 from the Nordschleife, its neighbour and perhaps the more popular Nürburgring circuit, to a circuit that will be able to meet modern safety standards. It is a circuit that is not to be underestimated. At 3.19 miles in length and a collection of 16 corners to go, it is a circuit that lacks long straights but makes up for it with plenty of corners. Whether it be chicanes, alternatively hairpins or sweepers, this circuit's got a little bit of it all, and with some elevation changes gently interwoven into the mix, it really is the ultimate technical test of ability right in the heartland of Germany. To do well here, our drivers will need to be consistent as well as quick over a single lap, because consistency can pay off when it comes to race conditions, but being quick over a single lap could put them on pole and give them the track position they need to be able to hold on. Albeit it's not to say overtaking is impossible around here, but you've got to be quick to be able to make a move happen, as otherwise the braking zones will come too soon. But who exactly is going to prove themselves the best here in Germany? Well, that's what we're here to find out today as we're welcoming you to this post-round broadcast from the circuit side as you tune in today, catching up all the racing action as if it occurred live, albeit the racing did occur actually on Sunday the 1st of March 2026. And we're bringing it to you as if it were live today on Monday the 2nd of March instead. It's crazy to think we're already into the 3rd month of the year. This year is now flying us by. January seems to take an eternity, February's gone, and now we're here with March and we've only got 3 rounds to go. But you're catching all this racing action, of course, on the one only place you can do so every week, and that is on YouTube at youtube.com and search for SimRacing International, also to SRI, and you can be tuning in there. And why not subscribe today, so that way you can start to stay with all the latest racing action from our weekly series. In the content booth, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be guiding your tour of this series. Indeed, we've got plenty of racing still to come. It's been an incredible season so far, and as we get set and ready to go racing today, well, what we do need to do, of course, is bring you up to speed with the stories from round number 7 and what exactly the story is coming into round number 8. And without further ado, let's get to it. So as we take a look back at our calendar then, we can see last time out on the 22nd of February, we were at the Bathurst circuit. The Mount Panorama circuit is known in full, but normally referred to by its local city. And what exactly did we get to see in Australia? Well, we saw plenty of batting, no doubt about it. And at the very front of the field, a bit of controversy perhaps, given the fact the win in the end went to Andrea Miatto, who took pole position by just over a tenth for his final lap in qualifying ahead of Henrik Riestrand in a very close qualifying session. And in the end, it would be the Italian driver who bring on home his 3rd win of the season. However, strategy went against him. Whilst he did have a comfortable 6.6 second gap at the end of his opening stint, he lost 3 seconds in the pit lane to Rhys Saunders, and Saunders ferociously chased him down. Traffic fell horrifically as well come the final couple laps over the mountain, and the two went toe to toe, and Rhys Saunders went for the ultimate dive of the century. Indeed, in the fact he sent it via first class mail into Forest Elbow, he took the lead, and immediately going into the chase chicane on the later portion of the lap, we saw Miatto do the same. However, whereas for Saunders it was absolutely clear cut, for Miatto it was a little bit too close, and in the end the two made contact. Miatto was able to survive it, Saunders was not. He did pick up some penalty points for it, but he has kept the win, and what it does mean as he heads into this round, we know that right now everyone's trying to pile the pressure on him, because when Saunders fell down on the final lap, Harvey Wheeler was right there trying to take his first win of the season, but Miatto was prepared. He'd already prepared based on the information he'd taken from Saunders' exchange, and therefore he made sure that Wheeler couldn't try and make the move on him stick. But of course Miatto is the man under pressure then from Australia. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, we got to see a 1st win of the season for Sean Connor. Albeit, the theory was it wasn't going to be Connor's win, given the fact he took 2nd in class, only half a tenth behind the pole sitter of Matthew Croft, and Matthew Croft gradually opened up a gap in the early stage of the race. Unfortunately for Croft, it all went wrong at the first corner on lap number 19, and the car went around, and Connor took the lead, and from that point onwards, nobody could catch him. However, Nathan Anstis and Carl Roy definitely had a big battle for 2nd place, and we'll tell you more a little bit about that very shortly. As in the interclass, meanwhile, Andrew Montaigne, well, he took pole position by 4 tenths in the end over Robin Paunier, and he was never threatened over the race distance. And well, for Montaigne, in the end, if that's the way you want to lead a championship, it's the best way to do it. Make sure your competition can't catch up, and Robin Paunier, of course, the number 2 driver in the championship at that point in time, and Montaigne's extended his championship lead, as you'll see very shortly, with his 3rd win of the season. Albeit he didn't have a boring race, he had to deal with a rather big conglomerate of pros and elite drivers around him, and therefore it was all about damage limitation in terms of gaps, but making sure he did the damage to his rivals of taking that class win. But here today, we are at the Nürburgring Grand Prix, racing on its Grand Prix layout, not your conventional GT3 layout. We're racing the Formula 1 layout instead, and we'll show you what it exactly means shortly. But also, what you'll notice down on the very right-hand side of our calendar, the question mark symbol. This is our final mixed conditions race round of the season, and that means rain is expected at some point today. Although I'll tell you one thing, in practice, it's absolutely been bone dry, and in qualifying so far, it's been absolutely bone dry as well. But the clouds are gradually gathering. I do wonder when we're going to see that rain, and if so, is it going to completely mix things up like it did at VIR. Indeed, only 2 weeks ago, we had absolute pandemonium in Virginia in the US of A, where in the end it was all about who started on the slicks versus who started on the wets and who could survive on the slicks to take the victory, and me on the wet tyres, who was able just simply to keep them alive until the very end of the distance. But after today, of course, we head to Italy. We'll stay in Europe, but we'll complete our championship calendar with 2 visits to Italian circuits. One will be at Mazzano in round number 9 in a week's time, and then we'll bring the curtain down at the Imola Grand Prix circuit on the 15th of March. But as we charge away into this round of racing, well, how do the standings stand then after 7 rounds of racing? Here we can see, starting in the Elite Drivers' Championship, Andrea Miatto leads on 550 points, 46 ahead of William Arneson. And to be fair, whilst our leader may have left Australia with a little bit of controversy behind him, you can't take away from the fact he has been a very strong driver this season. And understandably, anyone is a championship leader when you've got a field as stacked as this. There's always going to be those moments where you leave question marks afterwards, but that's always the sign of a champion. Everyone's going to have their little dark cloud over them. But he's also got some plenty of bright skies ahead of him, given the fact that right now, apart from his non-finishing round number 3, he is yet to finish off of the podium, and with 3 wins, can he make it full today and extend his championship lead further? Because if he can do so, he may be able to take the crown with a round to spare in a week's time at Mazzano. William Arneson, meanwhile, well, he has been the equal of Miatto for most of the season, but the only problem is, when he's not been taking wins, 3 wins as well, he's not been finishing on the podium whatsoever, with his weakest points being a 10th place finish 3 weeks ago, and that's been discounted, of course, as a drop score, but meanwhile, the lack of any other podiums means that's why he's falling away. Reece Saunders, meanwhile, where he sits in 3rd, he's moved up into 3rd place with that 5th place finish last time out. If it had been the win, he'd be a lot closer to Arneson, but he's got to take the points that he's got, and right now the Altitude 3M esports driver, and tell you one thing, he never gives up whatsoever, and he's taking that positive spirit into this round in his Ford Mustang. Henrik Riestrand, meanwhile, sits in 4th place there, and after 3 second places right at the start of the season, since then, the season has slightly crumbled, albeit he's waiting for the big comeback, and 432 points right now, he needs a comeback, because otherwise Reece Saunders will hold on to that 3rd place coming out of today, and then we do have none other than Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who currently sits in 5th place there for Tartan Reztech. And, well, he's definitely had some bright moments, but he's also had some dark moments. And last time out, it was definitely a bit of a darker one with that 9th place finish. A big moment with the wall midway through the race, costing him dear, but hopefully he'll be able to get things back on track today. Because if not, Harvey Wheeler's only now 20 points behind his first podium of the season last time out with that 2nd place finish. We've been waiting to see when he'd get himself on the podium. He finally did it. And right now, the freewheeler racing by Phoenix driving is Aston Martin, looking very quick. And I think he's building up an appetite here for further podiums today. Max Wheeler, meanwhile, fellow family member there, sitting in 7th place in his Audi R8 Evo 2. And whilst he is sticking with perhaps one of the most difficult cars to race in the GT3 category, to be fair to him, he's put together some absolutely great performances, but he has moved to the BMW since, of course, Monza, where he invested all in the BMW in order to be able to pick up the speed. It worked out for that 2nd place, and, well, the switch to the BMW has not held him back, and we hope to see him making his way towards the top 5 again today. Richard Simon there, defending champion for DCW Racing. Well, it all was looking good for a podium potentially at Bathurst until it wasn't when he made a major error, and that's why he's holding on to 8th from 272 points, only 2 ahead of Hayden Miller, meanwhile, and Miller taking that podium last time, indeed only his 2nd podium season, would you believe that? And the Scotsman followed up by their Salvatore Ferrandino, who sits in 10th place on 240 points. Jakob Stofko sits a further 4 behind it in 11th, and in completing a top 12 of the Elite, it's none other than Casper Brotner, who's had 2 non-finishes back-to-back, but hopefully he doesn't make it a triplet. Then coming to the Pro class, and here we can see Kyle Roy leads. He's holding on. However, why do we say holding on and not leading the way clearly? Well, the problem is that it's starting to appear is that Nathan Anstis, the man in 2nd, is chiseling away little by little. Now, to be fair to Roy, when you finish on the podium in every round since round number 3, you'll be thinking to yourself, well, this is all clear cut. Well, Nathan Anstis over the last couple of rounds has now started to finish 1 place ahead of him. And the gap still stands at 42 points. We're not saying it's over for the Mirka Group M Academy driver, but when your rival is inching closer and closer, Roy would ideally like to beat him today, because at Bathurst, what we did see in the end, the gap between the two of them was absolutely marginal, and Nathan Anstis was just able to squeeze ahead of him in qualifying and in the race, and that was the difference between them. And whilst Roy was getting close, it was VIR over again. He needed one more lap to have a chance to make the move, and it never came about. Anstis, of course, surviving at VIR despite a drive-through penalty, but there was no drive-through penalty for Anstis last time out at Bathurst. It was all on track where the action happened. So therefore, Anstis, with another second place, holds on to second, and he is now none other than 8 points ahead of Sean Connor, the Connor Bros Racing driver. Now, has he finally hit his big moment here? Is he going to be making another win today? And if so, well, can he close the gap down to the top two? His first win of the season. It's been a long time coming, and the Connor Bros Racing driver from the US of A looking increasingly confident, and that confidence well placed. Unfortunately, the confidence a bit misplaced of Ross Young last time out, with a couple of brushes of the wall, and the Dexterous Motorsport Zemeckis driver just not having a happy day at the office at Bathurst. However, he's 16 points ahead of Matthew Croft, the driver that many would argue, if it were not for a few spins and instants he's had, he should be just as close to the championship lead as Nathan Anstis. If you do the mathematics and the number of times he has thrown away a podium or a win, or has seen a podium taken away from him due to an instant, he would be right up there. But instead he's fifth. However, he is a wild card in this group now, and that's also the other thing you've got to keep in mind, and the fact we still got 3 rounds to go, and whether he suddenly picks up all 3 wins back to back, he's not necessarily going to be guaranteed the championship then, but he could really put a big dent into the aspirations of anyone inside the top 4. Steve Hobbs is a further 40 points behind there for Sim Coach, looking good as always in his machinery. And then we do have Darren Sharples in 7th place at Old Doozy Cars just behind. Rob Windsor sits 8th ahead of Maxim Philippard, who we didn't see on the grid last time out, but I'm pleased to say he's back here today, and we look forward to seeing what the Belgian driver can do after taking that infamous overall win, of course, at Monza. Not just the class win, but the overall win. And then Eduardo Roy is there in 10th place for Axis Simsport. Not quite able to recreate that form we saw at VIR, but to be fair, he did well to take 7th last time out in Australia. Ashley Brooks and Hendrik Zilka complete your top 12 there, and the gap between the two drivers only 6 points, and they are the best part of 28 points behind Eduardo Royes. And then we do have, coming to the interclass, a story which is all about one name at the very top, Andrea Miatto. Now with 3 wins to his name and looking unstoppable at the very top, much like we saw at Bathurst. Can anybody slow him down? Now, the theory, of course, was that Robin Powney would be the man to do it, the Sim Coach driver. However, he hasn't quite been on the pace of Miatto after returning from his mid-season break, and the Sim Coach driver has missed round number 5. Well, right now, he won't want to miss too many more shots he takes, because understandably, he needs to bring that gap down sooner, otherwise Miatto may be champion come the end of Mazzano. Craig Hewlett, meanwhile, well, much like a similar story to Matthew Croft in the Pro class, some would argue that it should be Hewlett right up there versus Miatto. He's had the pace to match him, if not surpass him. However, the only problem has been in the fact that where the rounds he's been the quicker driver, it's normally gone wrong, aka Monza perhaps being the best example of them all in round number 5. But to be fair, a second place finish last time out, and the story of that second place finish was essentially about having a better start compared to Robin Powney, who out-qualified him. But come the end of the run to turn number 2 on the open lap, it was Hewlett was ahead, and after that, that was it. The two drivers did not get close to each other ever again. They were separated by no more than 5 seconds over the distance, but Hewlett did enough as Miatto just walked off into the distance. Martin Kenya, meanwhile, he's not too far behind as he sits in 4th on 412 points. And it wasn't quite a top 5 last time out, but to be fair, he keeps on pushing his Lamborghini, and he'll need to do so because Grant Miller, 50 points behind him there, and always ready to pounce, albeit in the end, the Australian circuit pounced on him last time out with a non-finish, but that becomes his drop score. Nick Parks sits in 6th there with his best result of the season last time out. It was his first top 5. Well done to him for that, because it was a brilliant effort from the privateer driver. We're looking forward to more from him today. He's ahead of Tom Wheeler there by the best part of none other than 48 points. And then we do have Alexander Vingmar, Shane Cotton, and David Young completing the top 10, and Shane Cotton making it another 7th place there in 9th place of the championship. Indeed, right now he's trying to break the duck of being the lucky 7 car in terms of finishing positions. Will he be able to do so, given the fact he's got fierce competition to get into that top 5 from the likes of Vinmark and also Young? Shane Connor, well, he sits in 11th place of Connor Bros Racing, and unfortunately for him, he does have a penalty coming into today due to some licence points picked up in Australia. That being a drive-through penalty that must be served within the race at some point. So the Connor Bros Racing driver knows he's got even more work to do today, but he's ahead of Daniel Pays by the best part of 52 points there, and Pays off the back of 2 non-finishes. He won't want to make it a turkey today. As for the teams championship, meanwhile, here we can see in the teams, well, at the very top, it is none other than Axis Simsport there, specifically Axis Simsport Z. They are still ahead by 60 points of Team Beta Frost. However, both teams, mixed fortunes last time out, and the problem for this is neither one's really gaining the upper hand on the other, but what it is doing, it's giving growing confidence and momentum to everybody else behind. If you wound back the clock, the gap from 2nd to 3rd 2 rounds ago was pushing upwards to the best part of 150 points. Now that gap's come down to 114. What it does mean is that suddenly everyone's starting to feel as though it's no longer a 2 two-horse race for the title. Dexterous Motorsport Zemeckis on an absolute charge at the moment, and while they're holding on to third place, they've stopped the yo-yo in a form with none other than what was the team that was running fourth previously of Miracle Group M Esports. You notice they've slipped to 7th, and into the void have come SimCoach first and foremost with a huge round. UKSimRacing International as well, moving forward as well. They're now up into 5th place, and Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, they've had one of the biggest jumps from 8th to 6th. But on 838 points, so only 4 ahead of the Miracle Group M Esports team, who will need to bounce back across the board, although Kyle Roy, of course, had that podium last time out, where it was cancelled out to a degree by Jakub Stofko having a difficult day at the office. Tartum Reztec, meanwhile, they sit in 8th place there, holding firm to that position, albeit they have dropped from 7th to 8th after the win from Miatto, but difficulty for their other drivers. And then we do, of course, have Phoenix Racing sitting in 9th place, just ahead of Connor Bros Racing by 72 points. And outside that top 10, who's in 11th? Well, right now we do, of course, have Altitude 3 Esports sat still in 11th place, and they do have Axis and Sport White only 8 points behind them. And it could have been around where Altitude 3 Esports returned to the top 10 if it were not for the difficulties of Reece Saunders in his late battle with none other than Andrea Miatto in Australia. But that's how the standings stand, and let's talk a little bit about our host circuit for today. Is, of course, the Nürburgring GP Streckers Grand Prix circuit, located near the city of Nürburg in the Ahrweiler district of the Rhineland-Palatinate state of Germany. 3.19 miles in length, or 25.14 kilometers. But regardless of the units you use, the one thing that always stays the same is the number of corners. 16 of them in total, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely superb track maps that come with it. And these corners, of course, aptly named after a number of sponsors, but also after a number of drivers, perhaps none more so than the Michael Schumacher S of turns 9 and 10, the 7-time infamous Formula 1 world champion, and as they do say, hashtag keep on fighting Michael. As the drives roar the way around this circuit, where two-dimensional each doesn't quite sum up the general elevation changes, but it does sum up is the number of corners here, whether it be the hairpins into sweepers sequence of turns 1, 2, 3 and 4 that sees our drives go from the Yokohama curve all the way through to the exit of the AMG arena, or is it the run through the sweepers of turns 6 and 7, off camber at 6 and cambered at 7, and as they make their way down towards the lowest point of the circuit, the Goodyear Kera hairpin at turn number 8, they'll need to cut it fine in order to be able to go flat out all the way towards the Schumacher S, and in qualifying they'll be practically flat out through there. In the race they'll be lifting off, but get it right for the high speed chicane. They'll then make their way in towards Ravenel curve at turn number 11, sweeping left into the cambered right hander of Bilstein curve at turn number 12, before going flat out through Advan Bogen at turn 13 to go hard on the brakes at turns 14 and 15 at the Vidal chicane. It is the Grand Prix layout, so therefore it is the low speed iteration that you'd see for Formula 1, not the medium speed one that you would see in the World Endurance Championship that is more commonly associated with GT3 racing. But get it through right through there, one of our major overtaking spots. They'll then make their way into the Hyundai N curve as I stumble over my words there, and as the drivers make their way through the final corner, they'll complete laps to it all over again. More without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side and see how everyone's getting on in the final 15 minutes of qualifying. And well, currently the fastest driver out there is Andrea Miatto, your elite and overall pole sitter at the moment, albeit provisionally. But look at the gap that he's been able to accrue for himself, 2.5 tenths over Henrik Strand. And right now, Strand for Beta Frost looking good. Now, to be fair, in terms of the cars we expect to go well here, based on previous racing we have seen, the Ford Mustang is very strong here at the Nürburgring, and a circuit that you'd think it's more about the technical ability, and the Mustang doesn't always have technical ability when it has a big, brash American V8. But then again, this is one of those cars that's definitely very predictable, and predictability is what you want in a car when you're going around a circuit with a lot of direction changes and also a lot of raised curves. But with the Mustang being strong, it is the V8s that are strong here in the form of the Aston Martin as well. Miatto demonstrated that, no doubt about it. And we do look to Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who making his way on through the AMG arena right now, trying to follow his teammates around, trying to gain a bit of time there by simply shadowing Miatto, and hopefully this will be for the best for him. But if that's how things stand towards the very top, who's the fastest in Pro? Well, we do have Maxim Philippar. He's back on the grid once again for Gassed Up Motorsport in the 111 car. And right now, 5th fastest of everybody, and looking quite quick, it has to be said. I think he'll feel quite confident here with the way things are going right now. Is this confidence well placed or misplaced? Well, I think the answer is it is well placed as he makes his way up the rise, but understanding Maxim Philippar at this point, hoping there's a little bit more work that can be done. As he rolls around through the quarters here right now, well, Kyle Roy is the best part of 4 places behind. Or how does that translate in terms of times? That is 2 tenths behind at the moment as he makes his way on down the start-finish straight. Roars his way on through. Well, to be fair to Kyle Roy, all he needs to do is make sure he out-qualifies all of his main rivals, and he will be absolutely A-OK. Or at least that's the theory he'll be taking to the table. I suspect he'll be very happy with that. But as Roy rolls his way on around right now, well, what's going to be the big game plan for several drivers here? And, well, you can imagine as Kyle Roy starts to feel a bit confident, And Matthew Croft, well, he's down in 11th place at the moment. He's the third fastest of all of your pro drivers. Andrea Miatto, well, he heads across the timeline there. He's currently the fastest of your Inter drivers. And he's in 12th overall with Craig Hewlett not too far behind him. So therefore it is looking as though for these drivers right now, things are still getting nicely mixed up. As Miatto comes across that timeline and in towards turns 1 and 2 he goes. The gap he has over Craig Hewlett, his teammate, is no more than a grand total of, I do believe there, only what is a 10th. So it's the closest we've seen in qualifying some time in the interclass here. And well, behind Hewlett is Robin Pownier. He won't be too pleased about the fact that he is a bit further back. And I think he'll be hoping, in fact, he can be a bit further forward, as he would ideally like to be splitting what will be Hewlett and Miatto. He'd ideally like to be the pole sitter, but we can't always have everything we're chasing, and he'll definitely understand that, as will several of our drivers. But in terms of who perhaps is not looking as strong in qualifying, we do have Ryan Littlemore at the moment, right towards the back of our 35 drivers who have set valid lap times, albeit Littlemore make his way up the hill right now, and well, knowing the first thing he's got to do is find a few more attempts. He'll be able to get ahead of Rob Windsor if he does so, and then it'll be chasing down Alexander Vinmark and then James Connolly. Oh, that's a big side loose there from what's Robin Pownier, getting it completely wrong coming out of the Schumacher S. We didn't quite catch all of that, but we definitely caught a little bit, and well, pushing a bit too hard perhaps, and the car going against him. But meanwhile, in German soil for a German machine, it's Max Wheeler here, make his way down the start finish straight, and I get the feeling part of him will be wishing he was in his Audi here today, because the Audi can be very quick around this circuit, given the amount of direction change. Of course, the Audi just has the one challenge, which is the fact it can be a very loose car. But Tom Wheeler makes his way in towards the last couple of quarters, and as he comes on around, what's it going to be this time as he heads towards the timeline? And we was 29th, and as he comes on through, for Wheeler in this one at least, it's not going to be improved. He wasn't a personal best, but a poor last sector has definitely cost him some time, as he decides to park the car up there and goes back to the pit lane. Martin Kenyon comes on through, and 22nd is where he's currently sat, so no real improvement there. And well, in terms of drivers who have not qualified so far, Justin Noel, David Young and Shane Connor have all not put in valid laps as of yet. Justin Noel, I suspect, will be starting from the back of the grid. He normally does that, of course, given he's not in contention for the championship. So therefore, he decides to use this experience and puts himself a challenge, which is to try and come through the field. And well, to be fair, he's doing absolutely fairly. He's done some absolutely brilliant racing as Justin Noel in the 215, so we can't be upset about that. David Young and Shane Connor, they've not set times either in the interclass, although they have been out on the circuit, but things have not clicked together. They've won on slick tyres at the moment, as don't worry, that's not the brightness of your TV going down, that is the circuit, the amount of cloud that's coming over. So, is there going to be a risk of rain? I suspect so. But as these drivers continue to push their way on through right now, well, no change at least at the moment. We'll wait to see what's to come next. As meanwhile, Hendrik Zilka is heading towards the timeline. And what's it going to be for Hendrik Zilka as he comes on through? If we can find him out there at the moment. Yep, we do find him. And we're coming towards the timeline at the moment. And well, the 15th place driver, as he comes across that line, he is not going to find improvement out there. In the end, he's going to stay in 15th place. We do apologise there if you're wondering what's going on with the qualifying times at the bottom of your screen. They do seem to be glitching every so often, and well, I think that's going to be something that we're not going to be able to fix today. So that's why there is a lack of times at the bottom of your screen. But still, nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, we carry on. We don't digress, and as we do, we owe you an on-board lap with one of our drivers. And well, who best to get an on-board lap with than none other than what would be, well, I was going to say Rhys Saunders, but he's currently in the pit lane, and in fact, Saunders is here today in a BMW M4 Evo. Well, this wasn't part of the script. I'm amazed he's gone for a car swap. I wonder if this is by accident, because we know how committed he is to his Ford Mustang. He's absolutely been delivering in it in the Thursday GT3 Championship here at SimRacing International. And for him to suddenly go from the Mustang to the BMW at a circuit with the Mustang is normally very strong. I would say here he's accidentally picked up the wrong keys in the Altitude 3M Esports Garage. Alternatively, the team logistically have made a mistake. Now, how you can mistake M4 for Mustang, I guess it's an easy mistake to make. They both begin with M, but definitely for Rhys Saunders, this is not the way he's wanted it to go. Well, meanwhile, for Andrea Miatto, it's an onboard lap. We go with him as he takes us around for a flying lap of the circuit. Well, in fact, he won't be taken around for a flying lap of the circuit. He backs off there. Perfect timing from us, no doubt about it. We have a habit of doing this. So Miatto decides enough's enough. But meanwhile, let's see if we can get on board whilst we've got a bit of time to go. And in fact, you know what? Why don't we try and get an on-board lap with last week's pro winner, none other than Sean Connor, as he heads towards the timeline. And here we go. On his lap, we are going to dine. So down towards turn number 1 he goes. Full throttle in, knowing he needs to improve. Looking to the left-hand side. As he does so, braking at the 100-metre board, coming all all the way down the gearbox to first gear, and he rolls his way through the Yokohama curve, now coming in towards the AMG arena. Here, nice and tight to apex initially, but as the corner comes through, it'll go off camber there and just has to gently unlock the throttle, and with the steering wheel, now going in towards turn number 3, keeping it nice and tight there. You need to keep over to the left to open up right-hander at turn number 4, take a little bit of apex curve there, not too much, does it very nicely, and now corner making its way down towards turn number 6. Bring the car over to the right-hand side, using the escape road on his right-hand side there for the touring car circuit to act as his brake marker, chucking the car into 7. And now down the hill he'll come even more so for the right-hander here, and on his way towards turn number 8 he'll go. Powering his way onwards at this point, up into 3rd gear, and as the V8, the twin-turbo sounds from the McLaren 720S, he'll now get ready to go onto the anchors here, braking as late as he dares to dream to do so, trail braking in, it goes a little bit deep there, but does cut it back, so goes for a V-shape approach. You can U-shape that hairpin as well. Now as he gets ready to go into the Schumacher exit, let's listen in. And full commitment there every step of the way. If there was a lift, it was a tiny one, but absolutely attacking the corner. And now over to the right side he goes for what is the braking zone of turn number 10. And coming from left into right here through 10 into 11 and 12. Will roll his way down now. Well for corner, he's trying to keep it absolutely pinpoint precise. That's what you've got to do here. Carry every mile an hour momentum you can. He does it perfectly there. And as he makes his way through Ad Van Bogen and in towards the Vidal chicane he comes, we'll bring the car over to the right hand side, looking for his brake mark. It will be the 100-meter board at the latest. Hard on the brakes here, all the way down the gearbox to 2nd to 1st gear, in fact, making sure to weave his way between the curbs. He can't go over them too aggressively through the risk of a slowdown, and we're now in towards the Hyundai N curve to complete lap at turn number 16, down to 2nd gear. Decides to V-shape it again here, and I think it hasn't been the best lap from Sean Connor, so therefore he's decided to actually take a bit more of a jagged exit out the final corner to give himself some more straight line speed. But either way, thank you to him for the onboard lap. Stays 18th for now, as Grant Miller improves there and gets very close to, in fact, a 56.821. That puts him only a 10th behind, so Miller on the march here, 5th place now in the interclass, and with 2 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, well, can anybody else improve? And the answer seems to be right now, well, if there is going to be improvement, we're not seeing it necessarily from a driver, as Casper Rotner puts in another lap. Does not improve. Hendrik Zilke, meanwhile, does put in an even better lap, and he comes across the line there for Old Doozy Cars and moves up to 12th place. That's 3rd in pro, an impressive lap from him, and well, that is going to put him just ahead of Matthew Croft, and he's not in the car cross, so he's not going to go again. Croft will be starting 4th at best now in the pro class, and well, Maxim Philippard looks to be unmatched here versus Kyle Roy. Roy still trying to find a bit more time. He's got one more lap to try it. He does have overtime in effect, of course, once the clock strikes 0, if he is on a lap, and as Max Wheeler crosses the timeline there, what's it going to be for Wheeler? And the answer is it's not going to be an improvement, as Kyle Roy does not improve, and he is 4 tenths of his previous best. So this circuit right now still has some time in it, and our drivers still have some time to find, but who else out there perhaps is right now struggling a little bit? Well, the Beta Frost Inter driver, Alexander Vinmark, he's down in 11th place right now, the Inter drives. Not normally where we expect to see him. We normally expect him to be around 7th to 8th in qualifying. So therefore, the Nürburgring circuit definitely not favouring him or his Porsche, or perhaps both, as his Porsche 992 makes its way out of the hairpin and up the rise towards the Schumacher S. But the pole time still stands at 55.308, set by Miatto and Henrik Riestrand. And our Beta Frost driver has not been able to find a way to chisel that down. Although, to be fair, where we might have had a difficult day in the office last time out, but Jakob Stofko in the Corvette for the remainder of the season, because he did start the season off in the Ford Mustang, if our memory serves us correctly. Well, right now, the Meerkat Group M Esports driver looking very quick here, and that 3rd place, well, that's going to be one of his best qualifying points of the season. You have to go all the way back to the start of the season to see him starting right towards the front of the field, and the elite driver right now definitely putting on a star-studded performance today. But as he comes into the pit lane, Grant Miller comes across the timeline. He gets one more lap, and as he comes on through, does not improve over the entirety of the lap, 3 tenths of his previous best, but finding time in the middle sector. So therefore, he's going to push hard right now. I think a lot of drivers are going to push harder to find that extra time, but they are running out, as we do see Harvey Wheeler coming down in towards turn number 3. And well, right now, the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix Driver, hoping that he can put something even more spectacular together, given the fact he's going to be starting inside the top 10 at this rate, and that'll be a very good performance in qualifying. But Steve Hobbs comes out the final corner, and as the SimCoach Ford Mustang roars its way to the timeline, well, what's it going to be this time around for Hobbs? He does move ahead of Eduardo Royce. He'll be starting 11th now in the Pro Class, 28th overall. So a good improvement there for Hobbs. Royce is still on lap. Hobbs has to cool on down now, understandably. William Arneson does not improve position. He will stay 11th there, but he does find a bit more time. And meanwhile, who else is on a lap at the moment? Well, Reece Saunders definitely is. And I suspect right now, inside that BMW, he is going to be absolutely fuming that he's not in the car he wants to be in. But that means he is now committed to the BMW for the rest of the season, because if he were to switch back to the Mustang, as he finds Royce there, and well, in the end, the two of them are going to be racing their way out towards the pit lane, both scuppering each other's laps, it would seem, and well, I think there might be a word or two between them in the pit lane. I think what was Saunders there was on an improving lap. I think Roy's was on a lap of his own, although whether he's improving or not, we don't know. And I think both drivers there wanting to improve, but in the end step on each other's toes. Bit of a difficult one, but I think they'll sort it out as well. Saunders not too happy there, and a bit of a brush with the barrier. But as he calls them down, indeed they all call them down. Is anybody still out there on the lap? The answer is yes. We have Pietro Antonio Pasquarello making his way on around right now, and can he find a bit more time before this is all said and done? No, his qualifying session is done. Harvey Wheeler meanwhile heads towards the line. He was the last valid lap out there, and as Wheeler comes on through this time, is it going to be an improvement? The answer is no. He shakes the front of the car in disagreement with what it's been, and therefore, well, he approves the fact, or he shows us the fact that he's not improved, as that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it is going to be Andrea Miatto taking pole position over an elite ahead of Henrik Riestrand, Jakob Stofko and Richard Simnor. Simnor taking his best qualifying points of the season with 4th place. Maxim Philippar will start on pole in Pro, 7th overall ahead of Kyle Roy, who starts 2nd in the Pro class in 9th, and Hendrik Silke just ahead of Matthew Croft in what is 12th and 13th, and then Andrew Montine takes the Interpole position 14th, but he has the queue of Craig Hewlett, Robin Pownett and Nick Parks all together behind him, and in the end, those 4 drivers separated by no more than 2 tenths in totality. So the Interclass is looking spicy here today. In Pro, can Philippar absolutely dominate the day, and can Andrea Miatto have a good enough run in towards turn number 1 to lead the way? Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we now make our way into the warm-up session, we're not too far away from finding out here at the Nürburgring. As all of our drivers calling down, you can see in the pictures there what is the conditions, the fact we do have such a large amount of cloud over the circuit, and all that cloud travelling down from the Eifel Mountains, I do believe, so therefore coming from what would be a northeasterly direction. But as we go into the 5-minute warm-up session now, well, the cloud's still here, intensifying a bit more, but there's no sign of rain, at least for now, from what we can see. Well, if it does rain, that's going to completely turn this race on its head, because understandably, then you have the even bigger problem, which is, do you start on the slick tyre, or do you start on the wet tyre, or even if there's just the prediction that there is a significant chance of rain at some point early on in the race, well, starting the wet tyre might not be the idea initially because you're starting on a dry circuit, but if the rain comes soon enough, you'll be able to avoid overheating the wet tyres too much, and then you'll be able to go on forward with regards to pace, as the slick runners, meanwhile, might fall backwards. That again is if the rain does arise. But in the meantime, whilst we can theory craft the weather to death, well, Richard Simnor right now definitely has had a season where things have fallen upon deaf ears, in the fact that I think he's been clamouring for wins and podiums, but every time he's had a shot at one, something has got in the way. But today, well, could this be a better day? He finds himself starting on the 2nd row of the grid, and I suspect this might be the day where we finally do see him back on top form for the DCW Racing outfit, the all yellow and blue machine there. An iconic livery, no doubt about that. And I can tell you one thing as well, DCW Racing have been on the grid for what is the best part of several seasons, and well, they would not be amiss on this grid. Indeed, they are one of the beating cores of the UKSimRacing Community GT3 Championship on Sundays, and well, right now Richard Simnor making his way on around there. Of course, he enjoyed that absolutely brilliant season-long battle last year in fact now, and the fact that it was in 2025. It's crazy to be able to say it was last year. Simnor makes one around right now. He won't be thinking to the past, he'll be thinking of the present and what he can do in his present future. He heads onwards. Meanwhile, we do look to Casper Brockner, the old dudes in cars driver, the Amnesia outfit. And, well, as much as we do jokingly say it has been rounds to forget for the Amnesia team, it really has the last couple of rounds. Things have just not quite gone right whatsoever. And, well, the fact the other team is known for old dudes in cars as midlife crisis, well, definitely they're in a mid-season crisis. It started off quite well, to be fair, for the ODC teams in the first couple of rounds, but then suddenly everything seems to have just fallen apart. I don't think luck's been on their side, but also the fact the results have just not been forthcoming, and they'll be hoping for a bit more before the season is all said and done. As that's Daniel Payes making his way onwards, and we also do see here none other than Darren Sharp, who's on the sister team of Midlife Crisis. And I'll tell you one thing, no matter how bad the days go out of the circuit, they enjoy themselves. They're a very friendly community of drivers, and they absolutely love being on the grid. And, well, again, the fact, of course, we've seen this livery been on the grid now for the best part of what would be, if my memory serves me correctly, 4 seasons. They did used to race as old dudes in cars before that, but we did see the definitive livery. And whilst Darren Sharples, as Daz is known to friends, heads on down towards turn number 8, well, of course, staying with his Ford Mustang, a car that he's been with ever since it arrived on the iRacing simulator platform. And I think understandable there. If you're going deaf already as an old dude in a car, you might as well give yourself tinnitus along the way with that absolute monster of a V8 as well. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I still have ring in my ears because I used to race it as well in this series a few seasons ago. And, well, jokingly, my friends used to say to me, I need to turn the audio down. And I used to say to them, what did you say? Because of how loud the car is inside the cockpit. But as he makes his way through turn number 11 in towards 12, Sharple's right now. Whether he can hear the car or not, or whether he can hear anything else or not, well, he's definitely enjoyed himself out there as we're enjoying seeing him go racing. And speaking of one Mustang to another, Nick Parks, of course, could today be the day where he does bring home a maiden podium. He has yet to take a podium in the Interclass this season. A 4th place last time out, his best result of the season. Qualifying wise, not quite qualifying in the top 3 spots, but qualifying close to the podium drivers. And, well, of course, we do have some big names in the Interclass. Andrea Miatto, Robin Powney and Craig Hewlett all up there. And that's always the challenging thing, of course, when you've got such a strong pack of drivers in a class and you're perhaps not right up there with those drivers, you really got to try and seize the opportunities when they come and keep plugging away. And it can be a bit demotivating sometimes from a driver's perspective when you join the Interclass, which is the lowest class on the grid here. Now, when we say lowest, it's not in terms of, oh, look at the poor people or anything like that. It's in terms of the iRating and the overall pace of the drivers. When you join it, particularly as a learner, and you suddenly see that at the front of your class, you've got 3 to 4 drivers who really are the top of Inter, and then it's everybody else. That can be one of the situations whereby it can really feel disheartening. However, to be fair to Nick and several of our drivers in the Interclass, they haven't let it upset them. If anything, they've actually used it to galvanise them and make them push a little bit harder. And we have seen over the course of the season, the drivers further down, like Parks, also like James Connolly, like David Young, they have actually got closer to the top 3 pace in the Interclass. Of course, we've had the outlier results from, say, Andrea Miatto, for example, where he's dominated qualifying, but the net average pace gap has actually shrunk little by little. It's only by tenths and hundredths from round to round, but it shows you how the field is tightening up and everyone is taking motivation from each other, and that's what makes the class so exciting. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, what also is exciting is heading to the grid for our one and only race today. We can talk about all the theory, but now it comes to the practical test. As we head to the grid, who exactly is going to be the best of the best here in round number 8 of the Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17, brought to you by UKSimRacing, hosted by SimRacing International, here today at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke. Here we go. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our one and only race. Here's Andrea Miatto, takes pole position there for Tartan Areztec, the Italian driver, just ahead of Henrik Riestrand for Beta Frost. The gap at the end was a quarter of a second, but in reality, will it be like that in the race? We doubt it. The Beta Frost driver will know that he's got fierce competition behind him. It's only half a tenth there to Jakob Stofko for Mirko Group M Esports. The Canadian driver returning to the second row of the grid in qualifying for the first time this season in a long time, and he'll have the company of Richard Simnor, a season best qualifying performance, started full for DCW Racing. It was in a further 6 thousandths to Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who starts in 5th there for Tartan Areztec. Another good qualifying performance from him, ahead of Reece Saunders there for Altitude Frame Esports. And then it's to row number 4, and to your pro pole sitter we go of Maxime Philippard, the Belgian driver there, back on the grid for Gassed Up Motorsport and looking good. He'll be in the company of Harvey Wheeler there for Free Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, and then from them it was only a grand total of 7 thousandths, and it was a further 2 tenths back to Kyle Roy, who begins the day today in 2nd of the pros, but what is a grand total of 9th place there with regards to the overall position. From the Mirko Group M Academy driver, it's then going to be Casper Rotner starting in 10th place for Old Duty Cars Amnesia, and outside the top 10 it'll be William Arneson with Warriors weaker qualifying performances for Beta Frost starting in 11th. He's going to have the company on the 6th row of the grid of Hendrik Zilko, who takes his best qualifying performance of the season in 3rd in pro for Old Duty Cars Amnesia and 12th overall, and on row number 7 behind it's going to be Matthew Croft for Axis SimSport Z, ahead of his teammate there of Andrew Montaigne. Montaigne is your Interpole sitter, but look behind him and you will see a hungry pack of Inter drivers split with one pro. We have Craig Hewlett first and foremost, the sister team driver there from Axis SimSport Y, starting 15th, 2nd of Inter, ahead of Robin Powney. Powney right now knowing he's needing to split the 2 in front of him as much as he can. The Swedish driver from SimCoach will then be followed up by Nick Parks, who takes 4th place in Inter, and will definitely started off the day of the hunt of the podium in his eye. Can he make it become a reality? Sean Connor starts in 5th of the pros, 18th overall for Connor Bros, not quite the qualifying session he wanted, with Grant Miller then behind him on row number 10 for Phoenix Racing, just ahead of Martin Kenyon for DXD Motorsports, who finds himself a little bit down but not quite out in the fight for the top 5 spots in the Interclass. Behind them on row number 11 it's going to be Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of Ross Young for DXT Motorsports, and then we do have started 23rd Max Wheeler for Free Wheeler Racing by Phoenix, struggling in qualifying, just ahead of Darren Sharples for Old Duty Cars Midlife Crisis. Daniel Pays begins the day 25th for Old Duty Cars Amnesia, ahead of Ashley Brooks at Axis SimSport Z, and then we are going to have Nathan Ansis 27th for UKSimRacing Manish, ahead of Steve Hobbs for SimCoach. Eduardo Royce starts 29th, Access and Sport White ahead of Tom Wheeler for Three-Wheeler Racing by Phoenix. And then it will be on the 16th row, none other than Neville Harris there, 31st ahead of James Connolly for UKSimRacing Herbert, with Alexander Vingmar 33rd for Beta Frost ahead of Rob Windsor for UKSimRacing Manish. The last valid lap was set by Ryan Littleboy, qualifying 35th on the grid, with Just Noel 36th ahead of Sean Connor. In fact, that's Shane Connor there, let's get it right. And the Connor Bros drive being joined by none other than David Young, who completes your order of 38 cars. Well, ladies and gents, without further ado, as the field comes back to us, we are not too far away from going green flag racing. The formation lap is almost complete. And, well, as they make their way out the final quarter, it will be to Andrea Miatto to take us to the green for 60 minutes of racing action in Germany. And it's lights out and away we go for our first and only race today as they roar the way away down towards turn number 1. They charge the way on through, and as they do, all these drivers now coming down into opening braking zone. It's going to be tight, it's going to be fierce, but as they all coming in, a big lunge in the middle there for Reece Saunders, trying to use the brakes of that BMW to part the seas, but in the end he's not quite able to make his way through as all the drivers coming down the hill. Is everyone safely through? The answer is going to be yes so far as they're headed towards the AMG Arena. All 36 or so drivers who started the race made their way through. Big shot, Maxim Philippard did not take his spot on the grid. He's in fact had a technical problem with the car and therefore has fallen down. As meanwhile, Richard Simnor snake-tailing there all the way through. Oh, it's around for Harvey Wheeler. Wheeler goes spinning at turn number 4 into 5, and the Three-Wheeler Racing Phoenix driver falling backwards off the road, but thankfully the only driver to be caught up in that is him, and therefore he'll be getting himself back at the pack as quickly as he can. But meanwhile, as all the leaders come charging on down the hill right now, Andrea Miatto has held off the test of Jakob Stofko and William Arneson. In fact, Stofko has moved up into second place. Now Miatto will be hoping they'll fight and he can start to break away for the lead place. However, looking back, we had Curate Hewlett have a monster start there. You can see his McLaren, the number 4, as meanwhile Andrea Bettine looking around the outside of Hendrik Zilke, trying to get the place back as quickly as he can. That's not going to happen there, not for some time, even though he wants to try and take it. Further back, meanwhile, Nick Parks had a monster start. He's moved up into 3rd in the interclass. He's going for it today, the 35 driver. And meanwhile, Sean Connor there tries to try and find a way past him, as Andrea Bettine almost being crowded up onto the curve at turn number 9. But meanwhile, as all the field heads into the braking zone to the front, Matthew Croft, well, he's under pressure from Casper Brotner right now. Brotner trying to get a nose in there, and Croft right now to go defensive as Kyle Wright is being allowed to walk away. But further back, we do see more fighting. Martin Kenyon fighting with Grant Miller. These two were separated by no more than a 10th in qualifying, and they're separated by no more than a 1,000th here as they drag race their way up towards turn 14. McKinney on the outside initially. It's going to be a longer run up towards the Vidal chicane, but understand he's got the inside line. Now, does he fight for it under braking for the first time round? The answer is yes, he does. Big check up there, as that's a bit late on the brakes there for Robin Noel Brown, as it was also for Ross Young, but Young squeezes well through. And Noel Brown in the end, by having to cut the curve, I suspect he has picked up a slowdown for that, and he's going to have to give the time back, unfortunately, as he makes his way in towards turn 16. Either way, he's going to lose places here, as it will be Dan Sharples going around the outside of him. But meanwhile, after one lap of racing, it's Andrea Miatto who leads over and in the lead ahead of Jakob Stofko. William Arneson sits in 3rd ahead of Henrik Reed-Strand. Then we do have Pietro Antonio Pasquarello in 5th ahead of Reece Saunders, who really is forming now the second pack in the Altitude 3M Esports BMW. Richard Simnor sits in 7th ahead of the pro leader of Kyle Roy, with Matthew Croft right now trying to shake off the old dudes in cars. Casper Brotner machine behind him, that's your top 10. And Craig Hewlett, best first in 11th right now, is your interleader with Hendrik Zilke right behind him. That's the 3rd place pro car. And then we do have Nick Parks 2nd right now in the interclass. So he's found his way past Andrew Montine as well. He is flying his Parks and wants to try and get replays exactly how he's found his way past Montine shortly, but it's been a change. As meanwhile, here's a change of foot. That is going to be Kyle Roy right now battling his way past Richard Simnor. So in the end, Roy does get the place of Simnor, and in fact, Reece Saunders has fallen backwards 2 places. This, I think Saunders had a bit of a poor run. I wonder, there's been a bit of altercation. Well, here comes Saunders looking up the inside. That's not going to work there. He decides he backs off, and well, Matthew Croft look at it meanwhile, and right now these two elite drivers found themselves absolutely being savaged by the pros around them. But the pro drivers here, they haven't come to just make up the grid. They're here to have some fun as well. And understandably, Kyle Roy right now, with Maxim Philippard having to retire from the race before it even went green flag due to a technical issue. His car didn't even make it onto the grid, unfortunately, which means the pole sitter right now is giving way to this man, and the championship leader, he could not ask for more fortune to come his way. But of course, right now for him, he's got to capitalise on the luck, and that will be the ultimate skill test today. Matthew Croft, meanwhile, find himself caught between Saunders and Brotner at this point. The Access and Sport Z drives probably looking at this, thinking to himself, why exactly do I have to be surrounded by elite drivers? Why can't I be fighting another pro? Well, he'll be looking to the outside there versus Saunders, trying to send him the message, which is, look, I don't want to fight, but you need to get a move on right now. And Casper, oh, and he goes wrong for Saunders. Saunders goes round, the car bounces off at turn 15, and the Altitude 3M Esports BMW not in a happy place at all. And we're right now to wait for the whole field to come through. That is a painful feeling. That is a very long queue of cars, and in the end, he's going to have to wait so long at this point as he does get himself turned around around in the end. He's going to rejoin all the way down in 34th place. As we know, Justin Noel goes up the inside there. Shane Connor. Connor, of course, having already served that drive-through penalty by the looks of things. So Connor's got it out of the way immediately come the end of lap number 1, which is allowed to do. They must serve that drive-through penalty after the start of lap number 1. Alternatively, by the end of the race, they can't serve it on the final lap, and he does exactly that. But meanwhile, Nick Parks here attacking Craig Hewlett. Well, I don't know what he's had for breakfast today. I'll tell you one thing, Nick Parks absolutely on the attack here as he looks up the inside of Hewlett in towards the AMG arena. And, well, the clouds are really thick right now. It's getting darker and darker. The headlights are going on some of these cars. I think some drives feeling as though there's not much visibility. And what on earth has happened to the interclass? This is not the normal form we see. As Martin Kenyon looking for the move here as they head around down towards turn number 6. Kenyon trying to go on the attack here. And I want to tell you one thing right now. We said earlier on we have had 3 big stars in the interclass this season, aka what has been Craig Hewlett, also Andrea Miatto and Robin Pownier. But right now it's those who haven't been the superstars who really are on a mission. Martin Kenyon and Grant Miller all over the back of the sim coach driver Pownier here. This could all be change afoot before too long. Well, I do wonder, and if it does happen, well, it's going to be a very exciting sight to see. Further back here, we do see the long scattergram of what is pro drivers here, with Ashley Brooks leading what is a quintet of himself, Roy Sharples Young and Noel Brown, all the way up the hill. And then they've got Daniel Page queuing up behind them for close company. And the one thing about this circuit, as we did see in the Thursday GT3 Championship only a few days ago, is the fact that this circuit does lead to a lot of packed racing, and it's not the easiest circuit to overtake at, so therefore some would say it's boring racing. I was going to say this is racing where you really are driving on the limit to stay with a rival, plus also whilst you're behind somebody, you try and pressure them into a mistake. Strategy is going to be key, and coming in at the right time for a pit stop is going to be absolutely critical, but with the threat of mixed conditions as well, I wouldn't be surprised if several drivers here right now will be thinking to themselves, I need to save fuel to give themselves as big a pit window as humanly possible. But as Max Wheeler rides the rear there of Daniel Pace, no way in for him at the moment as the lap times are gradually improving out there as we come towards the end of lap 3 and on to 4. Well, Wheeler gets a better exit there, looks like the inside of the Porsche driver, and I think this is going to be a straightforward switch here for 23rd. On the inside he goes, and Daniel Pace is not fighting too hard. As meanwhile, David Young looking to go battling with Ryan Littleboy, who's gained a couple of places since the start. So is the logistical nightmare racing car that didn't set a valid qualifying time, and well, as Young comes out the toe there, the BMW looking so quick on the straight compared to that McLaren, and well, Young's going to get the place back even if Littleboy got the move done initially. He'll be under-braking here as they fight, as we lose Littleboy for a brief moment. Hopefully he rematerialises, and that's not the sign of a technical issue. Meanwhile, we've had a spin for Sean Connor. He gets himself back up to speed on the exit of turn 2. So Connor's gone around. We're going to replay that when we can. And well, now he finds himself dropped down to Darren Sharples. Sharples dives up the inside there. Sharples says to him, there's no way I'm wasting this. And Connor right now says, if you want a piece of this, let's go. And as they roar the way up towards turn number 6, we'll get his elbows out there. Sean Connor doesn't want to lose out at all. And we look back for the rear of his car right now, and Sharples is made to hold station. I understand be there with the Ford Mustang driver, hoping he could lunge under braking, but Sean Connor having that confidence there, even on slightly overheated tyres, that holding that outside line, he would be able to make the move all the way around the outside to hold the place. And well, definitely after that win last time out Bathurst, I think it's given him the motivation. I think no matter what happens, don't give up. And well, indeed, none of the drivers have given up so far this season. It's been absolutely spectacular, and some have been down and out. They've never surrendered to the circumstances. And Sean Connor right now making his way through the Schumacher airs. Poor line through the corner, but he does have Eduardo Ruiz giving him some dirty over the front of the car. But that Ford Mustang is getting closer and closer, looking up the inside, but under braking, it's never going to beat the McLaren at that distance. And when the Sean Connor is able to hold on, but his target is to catch up to the Spaniard in front of him. And if he can get onto the back of the axis in spot Y McLaren, well then he'll be right back in the pack here, and everyone will be equal. But meanwhile, all things being equal, Craig Hewlett has broken away from Nick Parks over the last couple of laps. Parks has now dropped back to 1.5 seconds off. So I think Hewlett's had to push a bit hard, plus also the fact that perhaps Parks has made a mistake or two. Last lap, well, Nick Parks definitely had the better lap by comparison, but this lap, I think it swung the other way. So Craig Hewlett has lost out to a degree, but now he's re-established himself at the front of the field of the Inters. And then Andrew Martin, meanwhile, still has the whole pack behind him of Pownier, Kenyon and Miller. And then there's a whole pro pack forming up behind him. So this is not easy reading for the Exodus Sport Z driver. Although, to be fair, if things were the fish as they currently stand, he would gain in the championship over Pownier. He would lose a bit of distance to Hewlett, but Hewlett would still be stuck in third, so therefore it would be a net gain for Martin in reality. So it would give him some confidence going into the penultimate round, that he might be able to seal the deal with a round to spare. Meanwhile, at the very front of the field, what Andrea Miatto is controlling this race at the moment, it would seem. A gap to Stofko, currently standing a grand total of only 6 tenths, if that. But I suspect there might be a little bit of car management going on here from Miatto, because the Tartan ResTech driver just did set the fastest lap of the race, and Stofko responded by being 300 slower than him. As meanwhile, well, there's action here, as we do see that's going to be Andrew Martin defensive. on Robert. In fact, great offensive versus Robert Paddy to get the place back. And in the end, he's going to take it back, as I think Paddy had the better run coming out to the AMG arena. And well, they're going to be too wide now, coming down to the hairpin. It's going to be looking around the outside for Paunia. This will give him a better run. Martin Kenyon, he's been a bit of a nuisance there, but Kenyon sees the door open. He's not going to waste time. They both go deep. Both Montine and also Paunia. Can Kenyon get it done here? If he goes around the outside in towards the shoeback rest, that's going to be incredible. Is he going to be able to do it? He's going to go side by side with a little bit of touch. It turns him sideways, and Kenyon goes across the road. Oh no! And in the end, that is going to be one of the McLarens. I think that is going to be the car of Grant Miller collected. And more in the end, it does seem as though Kenyon and Miller's fates were entwined. They qualified close together. They raced close together at the start. And in the end, they've come into contact with one another, as we do just see Neville Harris. They're squeezing around. Miller is struggling, and that's why he's trying to get out the way of everybody. But James Connolly finds himself on the outside. It's not a happy McLaren, but Miller's trying to survive the car and get it to the pit lane. But everyone having to take evasive action there, and Miller just trying to stay out the way as best as he can. To be fair to him, they've all handled it very well in the interclass, and we're heading onwards. Well, there is Reece Saunders, and Saunders, well, he's fallen a long way down the order now. What happened, of course, was that spin, but he even sees that, and he makes his way on through. And understanding right now, Reece Saunders picks up one place, but he knows there's a lot more to go in a BMW that he's not feeling comfortable with. But as everything calms down there for a brief moment, we come back to the front, and it's 2 by 2 in terms of packs here, because there's Miatto and Stofko, and in the fight for third is Arneson and Strand. And well, these two teammates, William Arneson has had a Goliath run of the start of this race. I can tell you that he's gone from 11th place to third in the space of what's been the opening 5 laps. Arneson has absolutely flown. Meanwhile, Henrik Strand right on the back of him here, and well, that's a story to be told there, and it has been a huge run up the order. And right now, Henrik Strand right at the back of his fellow Mercedes driver. My understanding, the Mustang, I think, is one to feed right now, but will the prancing pony be able to find a way past the German efficiency? Well, we'll see, because meanwhile, whilst all that's going on, we have Ashley Brooks and Darren Sharples. They are now all at the back of Andrew Montine. Montine surviving what was that close encounter with Martin Kenyon and company. Well, as he heads onwards, Robin Pownian has been able to break away, but what you can see is Ashley Brooks, Darren Sharples, Daniel Pays, also Robin Noel Brown, Steve Hobbs, just name a few drives in this long queue. Harvey Wheeler all over the back of this after his moment earlier on, and right now he does have fellow family member of Max Wheeler right behind, but as Harvey takes a peek to the inside there, you can see Max wants to follow him. Whatever Harvey's going to do, Max is going to do the same. He wants him to essentially be the bulldozer that bludgeons its way through the field, metaphorically speaking, but it's not going to work out. There's Neville Harris glues himself to the back of this group in this long train of cars right now, where anyone, one small mistake in Sunny, it could fall like a pack of cards. Alternatively, whoever's at the front of it could pull to the very back of it, as we see a bit of a scramble there. And well, in the end, Harvey Wheeler does go up the inside of Robin Noel Brown. Max Wheeler does the same, and Noel Brown, I think, did lift off there to let it go. The only problem is he's going to let Neville Harris try to get over the back of him. Harris is told, no, you can't. This is only for elites coming on through there, and the interdrive is being made to wait a little bit, and he'll be thinking to himself right now, well, why can't I come through? But meanwhile, Ashley Brooks, he's got a lot of problems, because that's Darren Sharples looking for a move on him. Going up through 13 to 14. Sharples right now getting very close there. And I think Daniel Pays is saying to his teammate over the radio, can you not get this done? Or as they make the way up towards turn number 16, the patience is definitely key here, but I wonder if they're losing some time right now by running in this configuration. But going through that right-hander, well, everyone right now definitely in the long line of cars. It's all cost them time further back down the order, and understanding it's creating a bigger and bigger gulf. Now, the importance of that will be, if anybody is thinking about pitting early, we might start to see a splitting of the field, whereby the leaders may actually be able to come out ahead of this train. As that's a big lunge there for Darren Sharples on Brooks, who cut across right at the last moment there, and I think that's the last moment you could go. Well, that starts to get a little bit questionable from the steward's perspective, but Brooks in the end, he knew what he was doing. He had to scythe off Sharples before Sharples could dive into that space. Sharples in the end had to pull the car straight rather than tuck it to the right, and well, Brooks right now definitely gets his head down there, and to be fair, actually a very fair driver, and knowing exactly what the limits are, but when you're driving like this, they are going to push those limits as much as they possibly can. Max Wheeler and Harvey Wheeler side by side in the battle for what will be elite 8th place, and Max has got ahead of Harvey, so therefore a change foot there for the older gentlemen as they come down towards turns 6, 7 and then 8, as meanwhile the youngsters still having to follow in the footsteps. They head onwards. There's still more fights to come between them as they come down the hill right now, but no change at least for now as we look to those class positions. And what we can see is that these two much further down the order, with Reece Saunders trying to catch up, and also Justin Noah a bit further back from them. It's still to play for right at the front here, as Miatto and Stofko are starting to turn up the wick a little bit more, and the pace between these two drivers definitely in a bit of a different postcode compared to Arneson and Strand behind. But I suspect right now for Arneson and Strand it's more about working together and saving the fuel, whereas Stofko, I think he's got aspirations here to try and make a move happen as we ride on board with the 270 from Canada. Right now in the footsteps of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. It's not quite a move as of yet, but the 5.5 litre V8 definitely first in for an opportunity, as Miatto meanwhile just simply holding his ground and making sure that nobody can find a way past. But of course, at this point in the race, do you really want to be the leader, or would you rather be number 2? Well, if Stofko thinks he's got the pace to take the lead and run away with it, he'll want to be the leader in this race to create a gap. Whereas if the reality is that actually the pace delta between the two is only a 10th or 2, then Stofko may be better set just to sit behind and do some fuel saving if he can manage the gap to Arneson to stay around the 2-second mark. That's obviously the question mark that'll be in his mind, and that's the thing that all the team will be trying to work out, is how exactly do they work this race out to be the most effective for them. But as we do see Stofko following on through, we also do have an update to tell you that Nathan Anstis did start from the pit lane as well. There was an issue with the car before he got into it, going onto the grid, and therefore they had to take the car to the pit lane. So Nathan Anstis, one of your big contenders in the Pro Championship, he's gone all the way down to the back. He is made his way out through the order. He's in 10th in the Pro class right now. We didn't spot that earlier on, but unfortunately there were some technical issues for a couple of cars, and we're near having to start from the pit lane. But the only car we have lost so far today has been the car of Maxim Philippa. Otherwise, everyone else who has made it into today's racing is currently out there racing. But as we come to the end of the first quarter of the race distance, well, we should take the opportunity to take a trip back in time and understand some of the big moments from the start of the race, and indeed the opening, what has been 7 to 8 laps. And well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a look back, starting with a problem for Harvey Wheeler. So this was Harvey Wheeler battling at the time with Kyle Roy coming through turns 3 into 4, and in the end, on the outside, lost the rear of the car there. Cold tyres, too much steering lock, and it was not the right combination. It sent the car in around. As he rolled backwards, we had this for Kyle Roy on lap number 2. And this was your pro leader at the time, right on the back of Saunders and also Simnor. And then as he made his way out to 2, just simply carried a bit too much speed there. Understeer, something the Corvette is very much known for on corner exit. It loves to understeer on initial exit until it wants to oversteer. But then this was Saunders versus Simnor. And well, in the end, ooh, goodness me, that was very close between the two of them. And that explains why Roy was 3 wider than for a brief moment. So we didn't see this part of the battle. And it was a small touch between the two. And in the end, Roy just simply said, well, if you're going to have a little bit of handbags at dawn, allow me to assist you in that and I'll cover through. And well, Richardson did get the place for Reece Saunders. To be fair, fair fight between the two. I don't think there was any malice meant there, but indeed, Simnor and Saunders both right on the edge, but to be fair, both respectful drivers, and you could see Saunders wanted it back, but unfortunately to the hairpin, it wasn't coming back into his hands. We then had this big month for Justin Noel, also on lap number 2. Also, that was playing out. Meanwhile, your Aston Martin driver on the US of A coming down through turn number 7, and he made his way out the corner. Rear of the car just came completely loose there. Well, that's not normal. I wonder if it's overspun the rear left tyre there, because that's a very odd mistake. That's not one you normally see a driver make. But after that, we had this on lap number 4 for Sean Connor. Things didn't go quite right for the Connor Bros Racing driver. Battling at the time with Nick Parks, and as he made his way up the hill in towards turn number 2, tapped the rear of the Mustang. And that's the most painful one, because that is a slide. It's a slow slide. Everyone did very well to take evasive action there, including Powney, Montine, Kenyon and Miller. And that explains why Sean Connor fell down the order. And then, of course, we did have an even bigger moment for Andrew Montine and company on lap number 5. This was Montine at the side-by-side battle with Martin Kenyon in towards the SS sequence. And as they came on in, well, Powney looked at the inside there, Kenyon. That sent Kenyon sideways. And then after that, clipping Grant Miller, who tried to take evasive action to the outside of turn number 10. And unfortunately, it did not work out for the pair. And this is what it looked like on board with Grant Miller at the time, as they make it up the hill on board with Miller. And as he made his way out the hill, all clear initially, but he's going to see Kenyon get side by side with Powney. He thinks at this point, right, go left, be safe. Unfortunately, the Lamborghini came right across the road there and made the contact, and that's where it went wrong for him. But after it went wrong there, well, what else happened? Well, we did have this moment for Matthew Croft. And this was Croft making his way from turn 1 into 2, at the time being chased by Casper Rotner. And Croft was second in the pro class. But what exactly happened? And in the end, just ran a bit wide there. That will be an off-track and potentially a slowdown where you have to give the time back. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to your live racing. And so as we make our way back to the present, what else is there to present to you? Well, there's still plenty of time left in this race, whilst we have skipped over the best part of 3 minutes there with regards to all our replay footage. What we've also got to see is that the two leaders still exactly as they were. The same for Arneson and Strand. They're still glued to each other, nose to tail. But what's happening further down? Roy and Croft in the battle for the pro lead. They are separated by 3 seconds, with Hendrik Zilker trying to close the gap down, albeit he does have Casper Rotner splitting him away from the rest of his pro peers in that podium slot. And Craig Hewlett, meanwhile, the interleader. Well, after Nick Parks was quite aggressive towards him at the start, Hewlett now has got things back together, with Parks now 6.5 seconds behind, and Sean Connor and Robin Powney closing up to Parks by comparison. But that seems to be where the race is going, as Ashley Brooks has pitted, and in fact has now left the pit lane. So I think Brooks has decided to get his pit stop in nice and early, and when doing so, perhaps there's a thesis to that. Perhaps the undercut might be the way to go. albeit no sign of rain at the moment, just a lot of cloud over the circuit. Are we not going to see rain today? Because if so, well, some would say that's a bit of a disappointment. I would be bringing a big sigh of relief here that the weather has stayed away. But Matthew Croft right now for Access Sport Z, what can he do to take on Kyle Roy? Because it does seem as though Roy is opening that gap little by little, albeit on the previous lap it was 300ths in the favour of Roy. The best lap times between the two have been 2 tenths quicker for Roy compared to Croft. But understandably, they do seem to be quite equal to each other, and I wonder if Roy has been pushing quite recently to open up the gap and now has turned the wick down a couple of percent just to be able to buy himself some time. But Croft, meanwhile, well, the Access Sport Z driver will know at this point he cannot trust that being in second is safe, because every time he's been looking good in a race, it has gone wrong for him, and that's not to be unfair to him right now. If a man could have enough bad luck to last him a lifetime, well, I definitely think a man can have enough bad luck to last him a whole season, and Matthew Croft has done that in the pro class. I don't know how many ladders he decided to walk under before he started this season, but hopefully he's now cured all his bad luck, so we don't want to see it go wrong for him again, because otherwise I think the first words that will be coming out of his mouth will be and then it will end with F, and it rhymes with luck, but you can guess what it will be. But of course we'll keep this absolutely sensible as he makes one through, and well, oh, that's the rain on the cameras there. As soon as we're wondering, is it going to be luck or is it going to be bad luck for a driver? Well, the rain is starting to come little by little, and well, it's very fine on the cameras. I can imagine there might be drizzle that can't be seen on our cameras, and as Robin Noel Brown dives a little bit late into the braking zone there for turn 1, I think that's just trying to put the pressure here onto Steve Hobbs, to be fair. And we ride on board with him. As the onboard, it shows you there is some rain falling. We can't pick it up with the circuit side cameras, but we can pick up with the onboard. It's very fine, drizzly rain at the moment. And well, we're going to add that to the dictionary today, the word drizzly. I don't think it was in the Collins dictionary, but now it is. And as Noel Brown makes one out, well, riding on the back of Hobbs, this is now starting to come into the window, whereby everyone I suspect is on the slick tyre currently. When do they pit? And up the inside goes Noel Brown, diving up the inside. Well, he's not going to be pitted or thinking about that anytime, so he's figured out the place. Lovely move there, and Hobbs left the door open, and Noel Brown said, right, I'm going to go for it now. Oh, this is never going to happen. And, well, one move, he's got the job done. And just like that, GPX Sport Xenon driver up into a very happy-looking 7th place in the pro class. But the big theme now will be, when do you pit? And we'll understand you want to try and leave it as late as possible to go to the wet tyre for 2 reasons. Firstly, holding track position is always going to be valuable, but secondly, you want to transition onto the wet tyre when the slick is now losing you time and putting you at risk of spinning. The rain that's coming down right now, well, it is intensifying little by little, and we will start to see a little bit of spray come off the cars. However, that spray in itself is not a sign that you need to switch. There will become a point where suddenly the slick tyre is losing temperature. When you start to lose the temperature and it drops down below, if I remember correctly, around 70 degrees centigrade on the tyre compound, that's when you've got to worry about going to the wet tyre. But of course, it's now surviving on the tyre in the interim period. You've got to drive hard, you've got to drive aggressive on the slick in order to keep it hot. But of course, that's contradictory, because at the limit and driving beyond the capability of the tyre is where the mistakes could be made. So you've really got to roll the dice. As we've got Cyril Pro and Inter drives into the pit lane, we've got Croft, we've got Connor, we've got Royce in from the pro class, and we've got Hewlett, Pounding, Montine and Pays in from the Inter class. But our leaders are trying to hold on right now, and Jakub Stofko is looking so much more comfortable here compared to Miatto. Surely he's going to go for the move it down towards the hairpin. If I was Stofko, you need to get ahead now, because this is costing you time, and Stofko just seems to be so much happier here. Albeit, of course, different style of corner now. It's a hairpin with a bit of camber compared to the sweeping camber corners, but Miatto goes deep there. That's going to put him on the inside in towards the Schumacher S. You can see the gap to Arneson and Strand is now closing. The top 4 is coming together in elite and overall, and as they wind the way through, we'll look to the overall standings there to give you an idea of where everyone's going to come out in relation to each other with the pit stop. Of course, we're well inside the pit window for fuel, so therefore everyone will be taking their fuel as well as the tyre change in the pits. So the rain has come at the perfect time. This will be a 1-stop race still. It's not going to be a sudden 2-stop race if the rain continues. Of course, that's another big question as well. If the rain does go away, we don't know the forecast, ladies and gentlemen, on the fact it is going to rain, and it has started to rain. But if the rain does stop, is it wise to then go from the wet tyre back to the slick? Or is there a gamble there where you stay on the wet to the rest of the race? Of course, you need to try and keep that wet tyre absolutely as cool as a cucumber where possible. But right now, Andrea Miatto, despite the fact he's got so much pressure on him, he's keeping his calm. And well, he's going to duck into the pit lane here. Is he or is he not? He does duck in. Meanwhile, Beta Frost split strategies. William Arneson for Beta Frost stays out there. And well, those are slicks on the car as far as we're aware. As the wet weather light goes on the back of the car, that's to help people see the car from behind in the spray. But Arneson goes another lap. Now, Beta Frost, to be fair, they can afford to do this because they have 2 drivers inside the top 5 over in elite. They can use Arneson for information here, as they can use Henry Strand as well. They'll be relaying it to each other in the pit lane. and in the cars as well to say whether the wet tyres are actually the right tyres to be on. But Arneson here, he's splitting the race now, and he's going to stay out where everyone else is coming into the pit lane. Casper Brotner stays out as well. He perhaps feels as though, actually, you know what, the slick tyre is the right tyre to be on. And Hendrik Zilke follows him on through. What does Nick Parks do? He stays out as well. Parks has yet to pit in the Interclass, and right now the privateer, who was second in Inter before the rain came and everyone started to duck into the pit lane, well, it's a gamble, but if he thinks he can make this work, it could be the best gamble he is going to make, and it could pay off for him as multiple cars leaving the pit lane there. That is going to be, I believe, Stofko and Miatto. Jakob Stofko has jumped ahead of Miatto in the pit, so he's just managed to outpace him out of the pit lane, and well, Stofko now is your effective leader, we believe, in this race overall and in the elite class. But with all the swaps being made between these drivers, well, you can see Miatto there looking up the inside. Can he go for the move? He is going to. Stofko a little bit wobble there too, and in the end Miatto does take the lead back, and Stofko can't afford mistakes like that. Small mistakes like that are what give the Tartan Red Stick driver the opportunity to go for it. He's absolutely eagle-eyed, and the 202 driver from Italy right now takes that place back. But of course he does the big question mark, what is going to happen with William Arneson? Meanwhile, leaving the pit lane as well, there's Sean Cotter, but where is Robin Pownier? There is Pownier behind him, so they've in fact pitted. Wheeler, Saunders, Harris, they're all coming up the pit lane shortly. There is Harvey Wheeler, so the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix Dry now makes one out here, and I believe that is the wet compound put on the car. I can see the tread blocks on the tyre there, as we do see it coming out the hairpin, so he's got to get those wet tyres warmed up. They don't immediately switch on. They need to be brought up to around 50 degrees centigrade on the surface temperature at least. That's the outside surface edge, and that's when they will be able to start operating quite comfortably. Richard Simnor, meanwhile, losing out there to none other. And then where's the Corvette in front of him? I believe that is the Corvette of Shane Connor that has just unlapped itself. And well, Simnor's now going to try and take the place back and put a lap back on the American driver here. And well, Shane Connor at this point, I suspect, will back out towards the Schumacher as he does so, and let Simnor take the place off of him. So as they roll the way onwards, well, we've definitely had the rain come, and that rain does not seem to be done. Spray is now getting a little bit more significant. I suspect we are now moving it into lightly wet conditions, and we'll be gradually upgrading it to moderate if this continues, as we do show you the weather on the right hand side of the screen. Unfortunately, we can't give you the wetness gauge, but what we can see is with the overcast weather and a very high level of humidity, 93% humidity at this point, track temperature is dropping by comparison down to only 22 degrees centigrade, and ambient is holding at a rather cool 19 degrees centigrade. So we definitely do have a circuit right now that is cool. It's good for the cars, but on top of that as well, with the wet weather, it's good for the excitement, as our top three have made the way into the pit lane. Arneson, of course, has been in for some time. There he is, and well, by going longer, has he gained or has he lost? The answer is going to be, well, the car's still being serviced, and Arneson is now leaving his pit box there, although Arneson having a much longer pit stop, in fact, and well, by the best part of 10 seconds extra, he's going to come out behind, and I think, in fact, he's come out so far behind Henrik Strand at this point, he's closer now to Pietro Antonio Pasquarello. And the Tartan Red Stick driver here snakes his way down towards turn number one. Meanwhile, there's been a bit of drama for Martin Kenyon elsewhere on circuit. Here is Kenyon. And, well, in fact, Kenyon's not had too much drama. I think he might have just gone very slow through turn number one, trying to let the lead lap driver go on through. It's the Dixie Motorsports driver here. Well, it doesn't seem to be in too much trouble, although he has fallen a long way down the order. And understanding that being the cons. Oh, he loses the rear of the car there through turn number four. And the English driver there sideways, but he's able to wait now until he can reverse it away from the barrier. He'll do so, and now he'll look to get the car back up to speed, and does so safely, and good patience there from the man. But at the very front of the field, the battle between Miatto and Stofko carries on as they head down towards the hairpin. And as they do, we've had a bit of a moment for Zilke and Robin Noel Brown. Simnor, meanwhile, he's had a bit of a slip. He's battling with Pasquarello here. And well, Simnor was not that close to him earlier on. He's made a mistake somewhere as Richard Simnor. He's trying to get the place back here, unless I'm mistaken. I think I might be, in fact. Definitely right now, Richard Simnor's fallen away from the podium for now, and he's got to try and chase down William Arneson. So Simnor having a bit of a slip. We'll see what's of that. We may be able to get a replay of that in due order, but right now make his way almost and try to break away from the Tartan Red Stick car behind. But what has changed then as a result of the pit stops as we head towards the halfway point of this race? Well, at the very front of the field, we can see it's Miatto and Stofko still together, albeit Henrik Strand is now within 6 tenths. William Arneson spends an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane. Well, that longer pit stop has definitely I've seen him lose some time, but there's got to be a reason for that. And well, I do wonder what the reason is. Meanwhile, Stofko tries to go around the outside there into the chicane. That's not going to work, not quite far enough ahead to do so. So he has to back off, and now Strand tries to come back in towards turn at number 16. Down the outside for Strand here. We thinks the grip's out there, but as he goes all the way through, when he elongates the corner so much that actually loses a bit of time. He'll slingshot off the corner, he'll get a better straight line speed run, but of course by the time they get down towards turn 1 or 2 miles an hour is not going to make the difference in the final third of the straight. It's not a long enough one to do so. This is not a straight such as that at Paul Ricard. But the stuff goes a little bit of sliver there. It's definitely now getting wet enough whereby to touch those white lines, the pit exit line, it's going to cause the car to snake and lose a lot of traction. That's what you don't want to do. And Miatto now taking much wider lines here. He's trying to find the grip, whereas Stoffgo is still attacking racing line. So we are starting to head towards a circuit which is moving off the racing line. But Stoffgo still believing in the racing line, at least for now. And this top three so close together here. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, Matthew Croft has jumped ahead of Kyle Roy. And in the end, Kyle Roy has been jumped in the pit lane. He had a 10-second longer pit stop, and I do wonder whether the 10-second longer pit stop that we have seen for the likes of Roy and also for William Arneson has been due to needing to change all 4 tyres of some description. I wonder if several drivers actually did start on the wet tyre. They ripped the wet tyre to pieces as a result of the threat of rain, and then they've gone from a set of wets to another set. Well, definitely something to see there. Some drivers have a much longer pit stop than others. Alternatively, a lot of slick shot runners have decided to gamble staying on the slicks. Well, if so, they're definitely gambling hard. But if Croft is ahead of Roy, Sean Connor, meanwhile, has moved back into 3rd place, but going wrong for Hendrik Zilker, and I think Connor's picked up the pieces as a result. And meanwhile, in the interclass, it is currently Craig Hewlett, who is in 9th place overall, leading the class, head of Robin Pownier, and Pownier has found his way clear of Andrew Mateen. In fact, Andrew Mateen's had a big moment somewhere. He's dropped a long way down, and Pownier may be 2nd now, and it's Daniel Pace, who currently is in 3rd for the interclass and Old Duty Cars Amnesia Machine. So definitely we've got a few replays to try and catch up with, because there's been some drama, and we need to understand what exactly has happened with regards to this drama. And well, we might be able to start getting some replays of it as we take a look back in time here, and we begin with a bit of an instant for Robin Noel Brown. So this was Noel Brown making his way through turn 1 into 2, back on lap number 12, but as he came in towards the left-hander, the rear of the car let go there. So in the end, making a mistake, and will the car slide into a halt, and the engine's parked up there, nowhere to really go. Meanwhile, for Ross Young, at a similar time, this happened to him. So this was Young coming through turn 1 into 2. I think this is going to be a mirror image of what's just happened there for Robin Noel Brown. And in the end, yes, it is an even slower version of the car going around very gradually on him. The most painful ones, of course, you've just got to wait until the car comes to a halt. But if it went wrong for him, a little bit later on, we did have a bit of drama for none other than one of our other drivers out there. And this was for none other than Casper Brockner. Now, this was Brockner coming down through turn 6 into 7, and water does start to accumulate towards the inside of this corner, and in the end, made his way on through in the rear of the car, just simply letting go. So a gentle mistake from him, but an easy one to make. And just before that, we had this for Matthew Croft, taking the lead of the Pro class off of Kyle Roy, and it was in the pits, as we expected. Croft was making his way onwards, and Roy leaving the pit lane there, and that's the difference 10 seconds makes in the pit, and Matthew Croft absolutely charging on past. But as he picked up the place then, we also had a bit more difficulty for Nick Parks. This went wrong for the Inter driver, and this was Parks at the time, just ahead of Henrik Riestrand. And Parks struggling on with the car there, and turn number 7, seeing him go round, and a slam of the brakes there, Henrik Strand, just in the nick of time, not adding to the scene of the incident, and Parks just heading around, and then to, ooh, slowly get it turned around there. Didn't want to reverse any further than that, and that could have been drama there, and that explains why Nick Parks has fallen a long way down. We also did have this big moment for Rob Windsor, and where all went a bit wrong for him. What exactly went wrong for the UKSimRacing driver? This was at turn number 1, car very twitchy there, and in the end taking those white lines, and well, those white lines are not good ones to go, and in the end to the barrier he slowly went and had to tow to the pit lane after that. I think the car was stuck on the grass and could not go anywhere. And then we had this big moment for Hendrik Zilker on lap number 14, and this was Zilker with Craig Hewlett right behind him, so Hewlett absolutely queuing up behind, and well, as he came through the corner, losing the rear of the car, it all went entirely round on him. So disaster there, and that explains the story. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing. We do go. And so a few stories being added up there and explaining everything. But meanwhile, it's all war at the front of the field here, because that is Henrik Strand looking for a move on Andrea Miatto. He's already passed Stoffco, so we're catching the tail end of this moment as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And well, Miatto right now side by side here. The spray definitely is built. Oh no! That's on the white line. It's going to go flying across the road. And the Henrik Strand, oh my good lord, as he goes rolling onto its roof. And Strand's race is upside down. It's been turned around. You name it. He's had a roller coaster ride. No, he's not a road Atlantic. victories at the Nürburgring, and it's all gone wrong. And for Henrik Strand, he was feeling so confident and suddenly forgot the most important thing about racing the wet here at the Nürburgring Cross the Price Tracker, which is that pit lane exit is the most dangerous one in the world when it comes to wet weather conditions. The white line catching him out there, and right now what was a sniff of victory in the end has now turned into defeat, because Andrea Miatto retakes the lead with Jakub Stofko behind. I think both drivers right now are going to be absolutely surprised at that, and well, as much as it is on the simulator, hopefully Strand was able to put his hands away from the steering wheel, because I can imagine if he had the force feedback turned up behind, that wheel would have been absolutely flying on around there with the car. But meanwhile, whilst that's happened, Miatto and Stofko right now, well, that's happened, and now they're suddenly battling each other once again. And well, these two, they do not miss a trick, do they, as we ride on board the dashboard here of the 270. And the Miracle Group ME Sports car right now absolutely glued to the back of the race leader. And well, to be fair, Miatto has found himself in these situations every time since the midway points of the season when he's been battling for the win. He's had a rival right on his backside. Last time out was Rhys Saunders. Here today is Stofko. And for Jakub Stofko, what a turnaround this has been to find himself right now with 26 minutes to go. Not just in the drive being one of the quickest driver out there, but so confident in the wet right now. But you can see even he has his limits as he comes through turn 13. And then he'll charge, because right now Miatto holding on, and Stofko, of course, with just a little bit more spray in front of him, and this makes things a little bit harder. You can start to see that water starting to form. We are getting puddles on the circuit now as the rain continues to fall here, and that's only going to make things more treacherous. But it will also do as he gets way too close to the back of the Aston Martin in front, and under braking now. That braking zone at 4 Vidal has got a lot longer now, and suddenly, well, they've got to adjust these conditions, because if they don't, well, we could see some big incidents, and in it could all go very much wrong. But this is the closest battle on circuit right now. The rest of the field has started to spread out, and you can see William Arneson there behind. Arneson is coming on quickly as the Beta Frost driver, albeit he does have Ryan Littlewell between him and the top two, but understanding Littlewell will have the blue flags waving at him. And well, as he comes down towards turn number 1, no, surely not, William, don't do that, don't make my heart jump out my chest. That was almost onto the white line there for braking. In the end, he put wheels on both sides of it, but I think right now he'll realise next time he does that, yeah, I better not touch those. And well, I don't know if he's been told yet by his teammate, touching the white lines is absolutely lethal. Trust me, I've been there. I've even got the t-shirt of it. And was the Beta Frost driver makes his way on around right now, where he's keeping the hopes and dreams of the team on his shoulders today if they want to return to winning ways. We'll see what the 222 driver can do. As meanwhile, further back, Eduardo Roy's on the attack here versus Hendrik Zilke. And Zilke going a bit deeper than the end curve, but Roy's literally fishtailing, coming out of the corner right now. That McLaren having a more grip. You would expect it to be fair in the wet mid-engine rear-wheel drive. The rear of the car is weighted down with regards to the weight of the engine, and therefore it gets better traction by default. But you can see there he goes as close as possible to the pit exit line, but he doesn't go over it. He knows now the run into turn 1 has been halved the amount of width that you could use, and well, the halving of the circuit definitely right now will take away one of the best overtaking opportunities they have today. Meanwhile, David Young here giving a place back to Neville Harris. I think there's been a bit of an altercation between the two, or Young has cut the Vidal chicane. That's why he's got to give the place back. Meanwhile, Nathan Anstis, who started from the pit lane after technical issues on the grid, the UKSimRacing British driver losing out there to Steve Hobbs, going wide at turn 1. So Anstis gets himself back together, but to be fair, he came all the way up into 6th place in Pro. It's not over yet. This is a solid drive from Anstis, but of course it is going to give ground and gravitas to his championship rival Kyle Roy, and Roy in second right now. Presuming nothing goes wrong for Roy for the remainder of the race, well, indeed, it's going to be advantage Roy going into the final 2 rounds, and Anstis knows he can't afford to drop critical points. But meanwhile, we dropped away from our leaders, and now we come back to them. Overall in elite leaders, we should clarify, as these two battle the way in towards Vidal. And well, the last time around, Jakub Stofko, they're definitely trying to make a Corvette-sized bumper dent into the back of the Aston Martin in front of him. But look at William Arneson behind. Now, Arneson right now is full of confidence. It's definitely looking good for the 222 drivers. He comes out of the corner. We've still got 23 minutes to go here at the Nürburgring today, and we've got a long way to go as far as this race is concerned, and they've got to survive these conditions. But if the rain stops falling, the circuit will evolve in the opposite direction. But William Arneson right now, he can't even see a thing here under braking into turn 1, as he does touch the curb on the left-hand side there. That snakes the car around, but run his way down through 1 in towards 2. You can see the reflection there as they come down through the water, and now over the rise in towards turn 2. Do you want to get close to that apex but not touch it anymore compared to the previous laps in the dry, because that's where a lot of water is going to be found. We can see now those differences in lines as every driver here just going slightly deeper at the curbs. It does conglomerate quite naturally at the AMG arena through turns 2, 3 and 4, and all the water will run down the circuit. But right now William Arneson trying to run his way into the lead of this race, but he knows he's got to pick them off 1 by 1 if he wishes to do so. Further back in the running order, Craig Hewlett still. Oh, that's Craig Hewlett going sideways through into turn number 1. And well, we picked the perfect time to catch him going wrong. But as he gets it back together, does Robin Pownier have an opportunity to take the lead of this race? No, he does not. And I think Craig Hewlett there may have been touching the white line. It's caught out so many drivers. He's got Eduardo Royce coming in, Hendrik Zilka. Tom Wheeler, meanwhile, he's made his way back up into third here. But he goes very deep at 1, gets it back on the road. With Daniel Payes 2.5 seconds behind here. But Payes will gain some time as a result of that. And Sonny in the interclass, it's all shaken and being stirred up here, and well, right now they'll all want a vodka martini come the end of this race in order to cool their nerves down, but it does seem as though keeping your cool in the wet's going to be the difference here, remembering where you can go versus where you cannot go, as we have had Casper Brotner towed to the pits off camera. We are going to get a replay of that very shortly, and in fact we might be able to get a replay now, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a quick look back in time at some of the big moments from only moments ago. And well, of course, we do start with a big moment for Henrik Riestrand, as that's Tom Wheeler off the road. So this was the battle down towards turn number 1, and in the end, Strand on the inside, he thought he got it done, and then suddenly touches that white line, hits the grass, hits the barrier, and the car just bounced in the end at full speed, hits the gravel, and at that point, in that gravel, sideways into it, you're always going to go over or see the car go up into 2 wheels. At those speeds, going down for about 130 to 0 as quick as that. Well, disastrous moment for him. Meanwhile, we had this for Justin Noel only moments later. This was on his 16th tour of the circuit. Noel making his way up towards the Vidal chicane. And as he went onto the brakes here, what exactly went wrong? And the answer was the rear of the car sliding loose. So he tried to get it stopped and went completely around there, 180 degrees, a perfect pirouette. Now to go to the grass to get it turned back in the right direction. We had this for Ross Young a little bit afterwards. This was Young heading up to the same point of the circuit. And as he did so, we'd got it wrong for Noel, and what exactly happened to Young? And well, he went deep there and made sure to avoid cutting the curb too much so as not to pick up a slowdown penalty. James Connolly, we haven't seen too much of him today, but we are going to see is it going wrong for him down towards turn number 1. And in the end, under a bit of pressure here from David Young. And in the end, under braking, went too wide under braking. And in the end, aquaplaned off the curb and did his own version of Henrik Strand, albeit he managed to land it on all 4 wheels. Well, the UKSimRacing Herbert driver there, definitely having a scary moment, but somehow getting it back on its wheels and carrying on going there, minus a rear wing. I don't know how he's managed to do that, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speechless about that. But we then had this for Nathan Anstis as well. UKSimRacing Manicius driver going down towards turn 1. And, well, we found him going the wrong way round. Went to the inside there, so okay before the braking zone, but came in a bit too hot. And managed to get it stopped in time. And realised that whilst you can cut the pit exit line before you put the brakes on, you need to put the brakes on earlier than that. And then we did have this for Neville Harris, and David Young was with him. So Harris was making his way through turn number 2, Young behind him, and in the 55 driver, all on the exit curb there, turn 2 into 3, and the rear of the car then just glided its way on around. There was no coming back from that one. And then we had this big moment for Craig Hewlett, the leader of the interclass, as he made his way down towards turn number 1, and as he went onto the brakes, touched the outside white line there. You can't afford to do that, and he gets away with that. That is the luckiest getaway he'll ever do there. If he does that again, I suspect that will be in the barrier the next time round, because he's right now used up all of his 9 lives in a single go. And, well, just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we go back all the way to the racing. And as we come back to it, well, right now there's still more to come, no doubt about it. And William Arneson has taken the lead of this race for now. However, he's got Andrea Miatto right behind him as these two make the way down the start-finish straight. The move did come slightly off camera then. We do apologise for missing that. But as they rolled away onwards, well, still 18 minutes left on the clock. And Miatto is not out of this one yet. But now can Arneson open up the gap? But Stofko, meanwhile, well, he's got Richard Simnor up his inside. So Simnor goes to the move there. And the DCW Racing driver making it stick, at least for now. Stofko literally twitching behind him, but Simnor moves up in a third. Will we see a Simnor podium today? And when you consider for a defending champion right now, well, this defence has not seen him pick up more than 1 third place, a single podium. You'd have to go all the way back to round number 3 for that. Well, could Simnor even take the win here today? He has got the pace, he's got the time to do it. He's just got to simply find the rhyme and reason to now. And with just over a quarter of the race left, this could be Simnor's day. Could we see him return to winning ways with 3 rounds left included this one? Or will he fall just short? But this is definitely a revival of form. The top 4 all together here right now, and what we are missing is the front headlights for Stofko's car off that contact to the back of Miato's car. He'll get away with that. as they come down the hill. We're not as strict as the IMSA regulations to say you must have one working headlight, otherwise I think you'd be coming into the pit lane. The team would be very quickly attaching a torch to the front of it, and well, if you think I'm joking, ladies and gentlemen, look up the story of cars that have finished races with torches affixed to them back in the year whereby all the rules said is you had to have one working forward-facing light, literally interpreting the rules. But meanwhile, literally side by side, they're coming in towards turns 9 and 10. Simnor already looking to poke and probe here versus Andrea Miatto, and well, the DCW racing driver here holding his nerve, and behind you do see there Robin Noel Brown a lap down, but watching the top four of the elite class here all fight each other furiously and hoping he can get a little bit more involved. But coming all the way down and around through the quarters right now, no way in at the moment for Simnor, as Andrea Miatto there looking to try and come back versus Arneson. And whilst we may have missed the move that was made for the lead of the race, to be fair, we're not going to miss the battle for the lead all the way through, and hopefully we're going to get in a replay any time soon. As meanwhile, in the pro class off camera, Cole Roy has been involved in an incident, and that's dropped him from second to third, and that's mean that Sean Connor now is up into second place of pro. But Arneson there slow through the chicane. The Aston Martin a lot more comfortable compared to Arneson, but as they come through in towards the final corner and getting ready to go on to lap number 22. Well, right now, no change at all, and Arneson holding on here and doing everything right, which is make his car wide enough when he needs to, otherwise just hold on to the natural racing line in the wet, as we do get a little bit more rainfall in there in this circuit. Definitely now moderately wet, as Simnor looking up the inside again. Richard is definitely tempting fate there. You can see it immediately. I think something's clicked in his head as he's going into the rain zone there, which is, oh yeah, I've got to watch out for the lines. But meanwhile, Arneson having to go a little bit defensive there into two versus Miatto, who gets such good runs out of these low-speed corners. That is his strength here in that Aston Martin. In first and second gear, the Mercedes, with so much rear-wheel torque speed, is really struggling. But meanwhile, Simnor looks up the inside. It's not enough there. He's going to try it, and Simnor right now, he's getting bold. I think right now we're seeing the Richard Simnor of old go on the attack here. And when I say that, I don't think he's ever left him, but we are seeing the season at 16 Simnor coming to the foray. And right now, a victory is only 2 cars away from him. Can he find a way to return to the top step? It won't be enough to enable him to get right back into championship contention, but for him, it'll be worth more than any championship crown this season, I can tell you that. But coming down the hill in towards turn 8, Arneson right now be hoping that Miatto focuses off against what is Simnor rather than focusing on him, but still there's plenty of time to see which way the wind blows in their battle. Meanwhile, off camera, Reece Saunders had a bit of a trip on the road, so has Tom Wheeler, who's dropped out the top 3 in the inter-class. He's now falling behind Daniel Pays, and well, Robin Pownier is now your leader in the interclass, with there being a further moment, we do believe, for none other than Craig Hewlett, although that has not been picked up by our cameras at all, and I don't think we're able to get a replay of it, but we're not going to drift away from this fight for too long if we do so, because at any moment, of course, this battle could suddenly explode. But looking back very quickly to what is Robin Powney here, the interleader, where Eduardo Royce is there, and Craig Hewlett right now chasing him down. Hewlett is trying to match him for pace on this lap. So far, he is quicker than Powney to the tune of 3 tenths. I think Hewlett's going to be faced off against Powney before the final 15 minutes are up. And oh my goodness, that is Jakob Stovko getting it wrong. Where on earth is that? I think that's got to be Advan Bogan at turn number 13. So he's out that hunt, and suddenly Pietro Antonio Pasquarello has moved upwards as he heads into Vino. Yes, that is turn 13, and Stovko is out of the race. But meanwhile, as Simnor tries to push on versus Miatto, well, the gap to Arneson now 7 tenths. But you see William Arneson there trying to take a little bit of water just to cool the tyres on down. He's had to push so hard on those wet compound tyres. Miatto and Simnor, meanwhile, still wind going down in towards turn number 1. But these 3 exactly as they were on the previous lap. And Arneson right now hold on to P1 as best as he can, but 9, even his tyres have limits, and I think he's having to work them so hard just to be able to create a gap, let alone maintain it. Further back, we also do have Steve Hobbs trying to chase down Hendrik Zilka for 5th place in the Pro Class, and battles are really starting to come together now as Tom Wheeler dives up the inside there. Wheeler goes all in, confident on the brakes, and well, to be fair, that is very well-placed confidence of the 3-wheeler race by Phoenix driver. Passes Hobbs, now goes after Zilka. He wants to chase down the top 3 in the interclass today. And well, to give you a state of mind of where Daniel Pays is, he's only 4 seconds up the road, so Wheeler, if he can carry this on, he is lapping quicker than Pays. Last lap, Daniel Pays, a 2:14.28. Wheeler, meanwhile, 2:17.66, but I suspect that lunge might have cost him some of the time. But back to lead as we go, as we do see there what is none other than Shane Connor stepping aside, respect to the blue flags. Here comes Simnor looking around the outside this time. Miatto goes defensive, and well, in the end, Simnor goes so deep he has to stop the car. He can't go all the way round. This is a big twitch for Simnor, and then he collects it together, but it is so tenuous there, the levels of grip for the 242 driver. And well, thankfully for him, he does not have a rival directly behind him. He has a lap down car of none other than Martin Kenyon, and Martin Martin Kenyon there. He's definitely got the patience of a saint to wait behind the top 3 elite drivers. He looks up the inside, and I think that's more just to simply say to Simnor, look, I don't want to go for it. I'm going to pull out of your toe in order to just make sure I don't pick up an overspeed here. But right now, definitely Martin Kenyon waited, and we can see how close he is here. And I think Simnor might now need to recover the car and get it back into what is the flowing trend. Meanwhile, fighting going on here. It's all kicking off in the fight for 5th in the Pro Class. That is Hobbs, Hezilka, and also David Anstis. Where on earth has Anstis come from? He's gained on the last 4 laps the best part of 10 seconds on these two. He's flying the UKSimRacing British driver, and he's going to look up the inside here into the hairpin. He's going to go for it. And behind him, Reece Saunders right now trying to say to Anstis, go for it. I'm going to follow you through. And then Zilka goes high and dry, but this is going to be a run down towards the Schumacher S here between these two drivers. And well, meanwhile, Saunders tries to make it 3 wide, but then realises there's not enough road, and Zilka backs off there entirely. He does not want that inside line in towards the Schumacher S if he can help it, and the old dudes in cars amnesia driver being smart about that one. I think to fight it there would have been tantamount to disaster, but now Nathan Anstis has the company of Saunders, and he'll be hoping that if Saunders is going to make a move, he'll do it quick. If not, he'll be given the chance to chase down Steve Hobbs, who's only 1.5 seconds away, and what Anstis does seem to have the pace here to get that 5th place back in the Pro Class before the end of today. But to the front of the field, and Arneson struggling coming through AMG Arena. We can see there Andrea Miatto trying to look around the outside this time. The problem is right now the outside's not where you want to go, as meanwhile Martin Kenyon's trying to unlap himself. He's going to go up the inside, is Kenyon. Well, it's going to put a complete forward in the battle, and suddenly Kenyon right now is quicker than all 3 of the elite drivers, and he's going to try and outpace Robbie Arneson down towards turn number 6. I don't believe my eyes. And Arneson right now, well, he's on the inside, he's had to go defensive. Simnor has squeezed on past Miatto whilst that's going on, so Simnor's back up into second here. Andrea Miatto, by just simply having a wide line at turn number 4's lost out, and Simnor now is going to go on the attack here. Can he find a way to get ahead? No, he can't. Martin Kenyon squeezes his way between the two of them, and right now Kenyon, he wants to get clear of these elite drivers. He's got so much more pace than him, it would seem, but Simnor comes down here right now. Well, understanding, I think all 3 elite drivers might be able to word with Martin Kenyon after the race. Kenyon will say he's trying to unlap himself, and to be fair, he is showing to me he's the quickest driver, but it's so difficult here when you're battling with 3 drivers a lap ahead of you, and they are the 3 lead battlers. But it's given us plenty of entertainment, no doubt about that. And as Kenyon loses it there, coming out to the corner at turn number 10, and pushing as hard as he has, the Dixie Motorsports driver goes to the pit lane there. That's not going to be a recoverable car, and suddenly the forward in the 3 elite drivers side has been pulled out. But now, as they feel a little bit of relief from the pain, well, William Arneson will feel the pain come back to him very quickly. It will feel temporary, the cure, because he's understanding we've got Simnor and Miatto still chasing him down hard. Meanwhile, Robin Pownier, the interleader right now, 4.5 seconds ahead of Craig Hewlett. Hewlett matched him for lap times, but he's all over the back of Kyle Roy. And the sim coach driver from Sweden right now, hoping that he's perhaps able to move himself a little bit further inside the overall top 10. And in doing so, gives himself a little bit of relief here from the battling that is to come potentially. But we will have to wait and see whether that's the way it's going to work out, as we do get a brief opportunity to take a quick look back at some of the big moments from the last few laps, including what happened to Kyle Roy. So this was Kyle Roy making his way down towards turn 1, at the time 2nd in pro, and went onto the brakes here, white lines, and in the end the car sliding on loose, going around once, making its way to the gravel, and thankfully having enough speed shed off the car initially that it did not loop onto its roof. Meanwhile, we had this big boat, ooh, as he came back on there, that was a bit of a run from what was Craig Hewlett, but Hewlett in the end able to squeeze on through, and then we did have this big month for Andrew Montine. And this is where it went wrong for Montine only moments later, going in towards what was the chicane here, Vidal, and went onto the brakes, and the whole car just came completely loose on him. But how did the lead of interchange into the hands of Robin Pownier? Well, Craig Hewlett was making his way through Vidal and took too much curb at 15, and the car went on round, but he kept the wheels turning, and in the end realised that by doing so it'd only be the rubber he'd be burning. So as a result, it didn't work out for him, and had to get it pointed back on the straight and narrow. And then we had this big moment for Martin Kenyon only moments later, right in the midst of the 3 elite battlers, and we're coming up through the S's here. Schumacher S, well, from left into right, and the rear car just let go then when it had so much pace, and it all went back around to them in this race. But with that, we head back to your live racing. And so we do come on back, but with the time we've not got long left. 8 minutes left in this race, ladies and gentlemen. Arneson versus Simnor. Miatto seems to have fallen out of this battle, and right now it's gone from a 4-way fight to a 3-way fight to a 2-way fight for the overall win. And right now Arneson trying to hold on for dear life. As we look back from the rear, the lead Mercedes, and Simnor so close to this point, tantalising guys. He can taste the victory right now, as well as the exhaust fumes of the Norwegian Mercedes machine. We're going up the hill towards turn number 14. Well, we can see that Simnor right now, he wants to look up the inside but decides not to here. He He's got to be patient and try to understand where is Arneson stronger, where is he weaker. They're both front-engine rear-wheel drive cars. They've got a lot of torque on the rear wheels, and well, they're very front-loaded, these machines. So low-speed cars may not be the best place. And SimRacing gets very close. They're a little bit of a love touch to the back of the car, and right now, as they make the way down the start-finish straight, SimRacing definitely has the speed here in the lower-speed corners. He's got the confidence, as we do see Nick Parks there stepping aside, letting them go. The ninth place into driver, but to be fair, for all the heroics he's put on earlier today, right now, well, ninth place in the interclass may be the best he's going to achieve. But as we do see these drivers coming on down and through, well, right now Arneson holding on just enough. Little by little, SimRacing trying to chip away at that gap. You can see it goes back up to half a second there, going in towards the MG arena. The sun comes out, but a little bit of topping up of the wet surface there from the rain. It's very fine rain at the moment, and that is only making it harder because, of course, this is a circuit. It's always evolving. As SimRacing runs wider, the confidence to go out wide at turn number 4. Well, he's definitely understanding of the weight transfer of that car. He does not seem to be afraid of the idea of touching what is the wet patches or the puddles. But as he does seem to be able to keep it together, at least for now. Well, what else is happening elsewhere? Nathan Anstis is closed on Steve Hobbs. We will come to that when we can, as those two are getting ready to fight for 5th place in Pro and what is 13th overall. But your leaders come down towards turn number 8 at the moment, and SimRacing, as much as he huffs and puffs, right now he still needs to find a little bit more to blow down the house of the Beta Frost leader. So here is Anstis in the meantime, and Steve Hobbs does have Daniel Pays right in front of him, the 3rd place runner in the interclass. And right now Daniel Pays on course of what would be a long-awaited trip to the podium, albeit, in fact, he's had 2 podiums so far this season. It would be his 3rd, and well, the last time he finished a race was on the podium in 2nd, so this could be a huge moment for him. A very happy moment at that. As Carl Roy, meanwhile, having a bit of a square-off here with the inter-leader, Robin Paunier, and Paunier has not got time to waste, because you can see, look who's catching back up to him after that mistake earlier on, and that is Craig Hewlett. Hewlett is stripping time out of Robin Paunier, lap after lap, to the tune of about a second or 1.2 seconds. So right now, Craig Hewlett definitely on a mission here. Can he find a way to close down? 5.5 minutes left on the clock. We are going to have, with your leaders go towards the end of their current lap, and Arneson going defensive there, and SimRacing goes deep. It's a mistake from SimRacing, and that could be it. The gap is going to open up now to about 2 seconds here as he gets himself back up to speed, and SimRacing in the end just out braking himself in towards Vido. I think he was hoping he might be able to go around the outside of Arneson, but the gap's reset. It now stabilises at about 1.6 seconds, and William Arneson has bought himself time. On to lap 27 they go. Mental mathematics says they have got another 3 including this one, and we will get to a 29th and final lap. We're not exactly going to do the 30, but right now Arneson has got a 1.9 seconds gap. He may be safe all the way to the end of this one, but he's now got to deliver those laps, and SimRacing meanwhile has got to try and regroup in the meantime. It's by no means easy here for SimRacing, and he's got to try and remember to himself not to make the same mistake twice, but also make sure he doesn't lose confidence. Meanwhile, Harvey Wheeler here, after what was looking to be a very good run early on, he's still on a mission trying to get the inside of the pro leader of Matthew Croft, as Wheeler tucks the exit of the pit lane there, making sure not to be breaking on the white line. That's going to be straightforward up into 5th place. So Wheeler's confidence has returned. He's on a mission. He's trying to charge. Meanwhile, in terms of charges further down, Craig Hewlett still going to try and fight his way past Kyle Roy. On that previous lap, Hewlett once again a second faster than Robin Paunier. It is very close there. The opportunity to try and take victory in the interclass, it really is a reality, but the problem is laps are running out, and he's got to find his way past Kyle Roy, the 4th place driver in the pro class, who understandably here doesn't have to give way. There's no blue flags or anything like that. This is for overall position, and I think Roy right now trying to do his best here to stay on track and saying to Craig Hewlett essentially, if you want to pass me, do it your way. I'm just going to focus on my race and not move my lines. But meanwhile, behind Daniel Pays right now, well, he's got the 2 pros of Hobbs and Anstis behind, and Steve Hobbs at this point so close to the back of Daniel Pays, but this is not where he wants to necessarily be, as we do see a step side there for what is James Connolly, giving up a lap to these drivers. But he's still out there after what was his 360-degree roll. Will be able to keep the car together for now, as Craig Hewlett does pass Kyle Roy coming out of 7. So Hewlett now has a clear road. 2.4 seconds is the gap to Paunier. He's got the rest of this lap plus another 2 to try and get the job done, but he's going to need a huge set of laps at this point onwards, as Ryan Littlewood pulls himself backwards to the road after taking to the grass at the hairpin. It's the Goodyear Care hairpin catching him out as Roy dives up the inside there, but as these drivers see this race towards its conclusion. 3 minutes on the clock. 2 more laps. William Arneson leads. There is Richard Simnott and Andrea Miatto behind. The top 3 separated by only 2.7 seconds. They cross that timeline. And right now, William Arneson, well, he's losing time. 4 attempts that time around to Richard Simnott. 2 more laps to go. On that basis, he will be safe come the end of the final lap. Simnott, as much as he'll pick up a toe going on to the penultimate lap, the thing about it will be is that as he gets into the slipstream, that doesn't really help him. If anything, it hinders things. It takes away a little bit of front-end downforce, and every little bit of downforce is absolutely valuable here in the wet. Keeps the car as planted as it possibly can be. But right now, Simnott's just got to grit his teeth and get on with it. As Andrea Miatto falls 2 seconds back at the moment. I think Miatto might be settling for 3rd right now. And whilst this won't be a win, it won't be his 4th win of the season, it's definitely going to be another podium, and his unstoppable run of podiums will continue. Whereas for William Arneson, he'll be the first to take a 4th win of the season in the elite class, and at an absolutely critical juncture as well. Hobbs versus Anstis. They come out the final quarter and to go on to their penultimate lap, and it's Anstis who's had the better run here as they're coming down towards turn number 1, and Hobbs right now trying to come across a little bit, trying to squeeze Anstis towards what will be the white line, but Anstis immediately goes, right, I'll dive into the pit lane exit, and he's going to defend that inside line to make sure he's got to move here, but in the end takes it very careful, over brakes. In fact, I think Anstis there too cautious perhaps, albeit you can understand why there on the inside it is so risky, but Hobbs holding on that time at least. A very good defence there from Hobbs, just making Anstis go to a place he doesn't want to go to. And now it's going to be all about the middle sector of the lap, where that Porsche is the quicker car, but the Mustang, of course, loud, brash, and absolutely planted. And Hobbs using the way to that Mustang to his advantage as Rhys Saunders, well, after what's been a dismal day for him in the BMW, right now 6th place in elite class, maybe the furthest he goes today, but to be fair, trying everything at this one to see where he can be come the very end. But as he is going to be one of the last of the running elite drivers, with Strand, Wheeler and Noel, the ones who are also running. We have lost a few drivers along the journey today, including Stofko, Kenyon, Connor, that being none other than Shane Connor, also Casper Rotner, Rob Windsor and Maxim Philippar. Philippar having the technical issues that prevented him from getting onto the grid as the pole sitter of the Pro class. But as we do see William Arneson coming out of the final quarter. Well, 1 more lap to go, ladies and gentlemen, and Richard Simnott has got the gap down to 7 tenths onto the final tour. As we look down over the front of the 242 for DCW Racing, well, the rain has definitely stopped, and with it, this circuit is starting to dry a little bit in the sunshine. It's still very much a wet circuit, but now it does seem as though the increasingly drying conditions here are actually favouring Arneson a little bit. The delta that we have seen over the last couple of laps, where Simnott has typically been the faster driver, it is shrinking a little bit as Simnott now takes a bit of curve cut out of turn number 2. Well, he's going to see whether he can push it out there. He'll see whether a slightly drying circuit is going to help him out. Through turn 3 into 4 here, as much as he can be nice and tight there coming out of the corner. Well, it is Arneson who still looks absolutely in control of this. There seems to be no question at the moment, at least, that Arneson with track position and just over half a lap to go. He's looking comfortable, he's looking safe, but Simnott down through turn 6 into 7, gets very close there. Arneson practically pulling the car and parking on the apex, and Simnott gets so close at that point. I don't think Arneson intended to park the car up there. I think the fact he just lost the rear coming down in towards turn number 7, and Simnott there getting so close at that point he had nowhere to go. But this is how close Simnott can be right now. Can he sling it around the outside? Can he find a way to cut it back to the inside even? The answer is no, he's absolutely glued to the back of the Mercedes in front of him, but coming up into the Schumacher S right now. Well, he's going to lift off here. There's no way to go too wide through here. As you can see, Arneson is struggling so much to get that Mercedes turned. Simnott as well. Both cars understeering here as they come through the fast sweeping section. But now it's going to be a heavy braking zone here, and Simnott's going to have 2 of those. This one, and then, of course, Vido. And, well, right now, can Simnott get it done right towards the end of this race? You can see they're literally nose to tail as they roll the way down the hill. And right now, Arneson here, all he's got to do is now 1 defensive line and the exit of the chicane. It's V8 on V8, 6.3 litres right now, beating 5 litres of American machinery. But can the German efficiency hold on for just a little bit longer? The Bathurst driver right now puts the car in the middle of the road. He says to Simnott, if you want it, you're going to have to dive to the inside where nobody goes. And Indian Arneson, well, he does not have Simnott too close to him. Coming out to the chicane, it's a perfect run there. Half a second is the gap in towards the Hyundai N curve. 1 last braking zone. Does he nail it? Yes, he does. And as he makes his way through the final quarter, it's been up, it's been down, but a 4th win of the season finally comes around for the Bathurst driver, William Arneson, overall in elite. He will take the win ahead of Richard Simnott, who returns to the podium for DCW Racing, the defending champion. And it'll be Andrea Miatto, who continues his run of podiums for a 3rd place today for Tata Redstech. And then look at this, because it is going to be Pietro Antonio Pasquarello, who comes on home in the end in 4th place for Tata Redstech. Their team's championship aspirations will be definitely getting a huge boost today. Meanwhile, Harvey Wheeler takes 5th place there for 3-wheeler racing by Phoenix 9. A podium was possible, but it wasn't to be. And Matthew Croft, he He survives it all, and in certainty, the Axis Sport Z driver returns to winning ways of the Pro class. That's going to be a huge amount to him. Sean Cutter comes through for second place in Pro. Another podium. He gets closer to the top two, with Eduardo Royce taking his first podium of the season for Axis Sport Y. How about that? And it is going to be the Inter-win for Robin Powney for Sim Coach. What a drive from him, back to winning ways, ahead of Kyle Roy, who brings on home 10th place in the end, ahead of Reece Saunders, as we do see Daniel Pays coming across the line. In fact, several drives being devoted up and down here. Daniel Pays second in the interclass, ahead of Steve Hobbs, and then it will be Saunders coming across the line in 13th, ahead of Nathan Anstead. Tom Wheeler, meanwhile, and then he will be taking it home what will be, I believe that is third place then, to hold up a second. Where on earth is Craig Hewlett? There he is. What's happened to him right at the end of the race? Something big's happened to Craig Hewlett. He was in the podium spots in the interclass. We're going to need to get a replay of that, as Hendrik Zilker comes on through just ahead of him, Matane behind him. So for Axis Sport Y, it's a gut-wrenching end to the race. Henrik Strand's coming home in 19th place. Max Wheeler comes on home in what will be 20th in the end, just ahead of Ross Young. Where is Ross Young? There he is, coming out the final corner. And indeed, as he makes way onwards, we're losing a few drives right at the end of this race. Don't say it's over until it is over. Young comes ahead on through in 8th in Pro, just ahead of Darren Sharples. Justin in the end makes his way from the back of the field to 23rd. That's 9th in Elite, and it is going to be Neville Harris taking one of his best performances of the season out of the privateer. Well done to him, 6th in the interclass. Some good points coming his way. Header David Young, who makes it another 7th place. Logistical Nightmare Racing driver, definitely loving his 7th place finishes. And right now, that number is lucky, but I wonder if it's good luck or bad luck at this point, given the number of 7th place he's had this season. And it'll be Grant Miller in the end, finding himself in the weeds, but still, he's made his way to the finish line, but he's already classified as a finisher, so he finished a lap down. Well, as he makes his way into the pit lane, ladies and gentlemen, we've got just one question mark before we do look to those results, and the question is, what exactly happened right at the end to Craig Hewlett? And here we go to explain. So this was Hewlett coming down towards the hairpin at the time, running in second place in the interclass, and the car went on around there, and well, the worst possible end to this race, because he had to try and get it back on the road, but couldn't because cars were coming through, and literally on the edge of the gravel trap there, no traction, and all those places just slipping out of Craig Hewlett's hand just like that. It just is absolutely horrendous, and it wasn't just that, I do believe. I think he also did have a further moment, did Hewlett, right towards the very end, and this was where we did see Craig Hewlett even lose more places, as Hendrik Zilker came through right towards the finish, and there was Hewlett just in front of him. What exactly went wrong? And well, Hewlett in the end was just surviving this race at the very end, so he gave up the place there to Zilker by design. So really it was having it go wrong at turn number 8 for Craig Hewlett, and understandably a lot of frustration there, right? And you've got to feel sorry for him, because he's given it everything today, and in the end the circuit has come back to spite him here in Germany. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we head back to your live pictures, and we head to your results, of course, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as our circuit does fall silent, this is how our drives finish, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and what a race it has been today, no doubt about it. William Arneson then taking victory. It's been some time since we said that, but it is a 4th win of the season overall and in elite class for the Beta Frost driver by 4 attempts in the end over Richard Simnor. Simnor returns to the podium for DCW Racing and almost took the win, but he had to settle for second. And Andrea Miatto, they're leading home a 3-4 for Tartan Reztech, ahead of his teammate of Pietro Antonio Pasquarello. In the end, unfortunately for the 202 driver, whilst he was in the lead, he lost out to Arneson, and in the changeable conditions, it just seemed as though the Aston Martin driver not quite having the pace to hold on. Harvey Wheeler took 5th place just behind for 3-wheeler racing by Phoenix. He'll be very happy with that result, given how it started compared to how it ended. And Matthew Croft in the end, coming on through for 6th place, but to him, much more precious than that, a return to the Pro podium, and with it, a return to the top step for the Axis Sport Z driver. He was 8 seconds ahead of Sean Connor, who for Connor Bros makes it another 2nd place, and his championship definitely really coming alive, and a first Pro podium of the season there for Eduardo Royce for Axis Sport Y, and after the heroics of VIR that all backfired, well, in the end, he's definitely made it work here in the final mixed conditions race of the season. Mixed conditions are his fave, and the Spaniard there wasting no more opportunities to make his way onto the podium. Ryan Powney, you're into winner there, 9th in the end for Sim Coach. He'll be ecstatic about that, and that helps him now draw some parity versus the championship leader of Andrew Montaigne. He was 9th for Sim Coach, ahead of Kyle Roy, missing the podium for the first time in a long time this season in the Pro class, but the Mirko Group M Academy driver, knowing that today, key points have been attained, and also on top of that, he's at least beaten one of his rivals. Daniel Pace to 11th. or a return to the podium in the Interclass for the Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia driver, and what a way to do it. Indeed, in terms of when he's previously finished on the podium, it was the last race he finished all the way back in round number 5, and he was ahead of Steve Hobbs there, who took 12th place. The Sim Coach driver fending off the challenge from many a rival, including Nathan Anstis, and in Reece Saunders was between the two. Anstis was 14th, and Tom Wheeler completed the Interpodium there with 3rd place in class, and for Freewheeler Racing by Phoenix, 15th overall, and well, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that, knowing that is only his 2nd podium of the season. His first one, of course, coming in the season opener, but now he's made it another one, and that's going to give him some confidence in chasing down the top 5 come the end of the season. Hendrik Silke took 16th ahead of Craig Hewlett, who with his last lap disaster, well, he'll be absolutely gutted with that, and that really will put a complication into his championship campaign when it's coming on so strong. But look who finished behind in there. His teammate for Axis SimSport Z, Andrea Miatto, the Inter-Championship leader, 18th, not the day he's wanted, and that's going to hurt when Robin Pioneer has taken the class win. Henrik Riestrand, after rolling the cart onto its roof, did recover in the end to 19th place for Beta Frost. Well done to him, 20 seconds ahead of Max Wheeler, and outside the top 20. In 21st place, it was Ross Young there for DXT Motorsports. He was ahead of Darren Sharples, with both drivers having great moments but also having some difficult ones, and Justin Noel was 23rd there, ahead of Neville Harris. Harris in, bringing on home what was a 6th place finish in the Interclass, just clear of David Young, who made it another 7th place to the class, 25th overall, and it was on lap down there for Grant Miller ahead of Nick Parks, with Robin Noel Brown, Ryan Littlemore and James Conley completing the top 30, and well done to Ryan Littlemore for gradually making his way up the order, whilst he did have some offs. To be fair, he picked up some places where others struggled in the wet. It was 31st for Ashley Brooks ahead of Alexander Vingmark, and he was your last finisher a lap down. And then we did see the retirements of Jakob Stofko, as we did for Martin Kenyon, Shane Connor, Casper Rotner, Rob Windsor, and a non-start, sadly, for the pole sitter in the pro class of Maxim Philippar. But the points are paid in the classes, so let's come to the class finishing positions. And as we can see here, starting with Elite, it was William Arneson who took victory for Beta Frost there, and what a win it'll be. But he had to hold off the fast attacks of Richard Simnor, who in the end, by being so bold and brash, making mistakes, and he could not find a way through. The DCW rated driver in the end to settle for 2nd, but to be fair, when it is a return to the podium in a long time, he won't be too upset about that. And Andrea Miatto coming home in 3rd for Tartan Redstech. Well, on the face of it, it doesn't look a good result, but when you consider all he needs is podiums right now to secure his status as champion at the end of the season, well, you'll know that 3rd place actually will go a long way. Petro Antonio Pasquarello was behind him in 4th there for Tartan Redstech. And it was the third 4 seconds to Harvey Wheeler, who already came on strong late on in the race as the circuit started to dry. The three-wheeler racing by Phoenix Drive was well cleared to the tune of 32 seconds over Reece Saunders, ruining the fact now that he's got a BMW that shouldn't have been here today, and indeed the logistics team at Altitude Frame Esports will be coming under inquiries, and was a further 20 seconds back to Henrik Riestrand for Beta Frost, who had the roller coaster ride of rolling the cart onto its roof at turn 1, ahead of Max Wheeler by 20 seconds. Behind the three-wheeler racing by Phoenix Drive, it was then a further 11 to Justin Noel, and it was retirements unfortunately for Jakob Stofko, as it was for Casper Brotner. But to be fair to Jakob Stofko, putting up a huge fight at the front of the field, and this result not reflective of what he brought to the table today. So the pro class we go, and as we do, the winner of the pro class, Matthew Croft there for Axis SimSport Z. What a win it is for him, and it does mean now that he has his 2nd win on the board finally, but it's crazy to think every time he's finished on the podium it's been a win, otherwise the podium has escaped him. Behind the Axis SimSport Z drive by 7.6 seconds was Sean Connor, who, given how the race started and how it then evolved midway through, I don't think he's going to quite believe he's finished 2nd today. I think he's going to be telling many people to pinch him. Eduardo Royes meanwhile taking 3rd there for Axis SimSport Y. He'll be pleased as much for his first podium of the season, finally making the magic happen for Axis SimSport Y ahead of Kyle Roy. And in the end, the championship leader, 4th today, loses some of his gap to Sean Connor, but gains his gap back once again on Nathan Anstis, with Anstis being separated from Roy by Steve Hobbs. Hobbs taking the top 5 there. He'll be happy with that, particularly to have held off Anstis right at the end, with the UKSimRacing Manish driver in turn 13 seconds ahead of Hendrik Zilka. For the Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia driver, definitely a great middle stint to the race, but the wet weather conditions gradually catched him out, and Ross Young was behind him in 8th. Then it was Darren Sharples and Robin Noel Brown who completed the top 10, with your 10th place finisher a lap down, as it was also a lap down to Ashley Brooks, and then we did see retirement to Rob Windsor and also Maxim Philippar. A non-start for Philippar, sadly, and then we come to the Interclass. Last but by no means least, and here it is that we see Robin Powney, the Sim Coach driver, in the end taking that victory by 6 seconds over Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia's Daniel Pais, who really excelled in the changeable conditions. And then it was 3rd to Tom Wheeler in his Ford Mustang for three-wheeler racing by Phoenix, coming on strong as the race went on, and well, Craig Hewlett by comparison for Axis SimSport Y having to settle for 4th. Andrew Montine, 5th there, and indeed for both of the Axis SimSport drivers, nightmare ends their race in many respects, particularly for Craig Hewlett, and what was looking to be a perfect podium in the end was turned into a frustrating frustrating 5th, and a frustrating 4th, I should say, and a frustrating 5th for Andrea Miatto, and then that championship lead right now has definitely been slashed. Neville Harris took 6th there for the privateer, just ahead of David Young, with a logistical nightmare race drive being the last lead lap finish of the interclass, and it was a lap down for Grant Miller, as it was for Nick Parks and Ryan Littlemore, and James Connolly and Alexander Vimar adding their names to that list. Sadly, it was retirements for Martin Kenyon, as it was for Shane Connor. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the race results and all of our racing here today. But of course, what a race it has been here at the Nürburgring Gross Price Strecker, and we've still got plenty more racing to come in our final 2 rounds as we pack up our bags and start to make our way to Italy. But with that, well, it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about how you can be on the grid in our series at SimRacing International, or just join in the community, or for all that and in between, we definitely recommend you join our official Discord, invite link available at the bottom of your screen. And there's never been a better time to get on the grid or just join SimRacing International, and whether you're a rookie all the way through to an esports professional, well, we'd be more than happy to have you. And if you do want to join the grid, of course, we do have multiple series currently ongoing, including Season 11 of the Thursday GT3 Championship coming to a close in the near future, and we're already getting set for Season 12. We, of course, also do have the UKSimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship, which you've been watching today, and we're getting set for Season 18 of that already. Sign-ups have recently opened, and if you do want to get on the grid for all this racing action, we definitely recommend you get yourself signed up as soon as possible. They are going like hotcakes, places on the grid. On Fridays, meanwhile, we do, of course, have a bit of a trip back in time for the Grand Touring Endurance class. The GTEs, we revived them, of course, after they retired in 2023, and we see them race every Friday, and a Season 2 is just around the corner on that as well. And we also do have, for the more casual participant, or someone who just wants to join the grid free of charge, well, of course, you do have our free to join Practice League, which does run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So there's never been a better time to get on the grid, so why not do so today and join in all the fun and action. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carme, Modern Technology, and also the GP2 Group. And we'd also like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community here at SimRacing International. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's onwards we go to our penultimate round of the season. We make our way to Italy, and next time, for round number 9, we will be at the motorcycle circuit that's definitely become very popular race on 4 wheels in recent years, the Mazzano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. And as we make our way to the very flat circuit, there's no sign of rain, unfortunately, for our drivers, but there is a sign of sunshine. And what we can tell you is, coming into our penultimate round in the elite class, a 3rd place today means Andrea Miatto holds his lead, but is there going to be a last gasp charge from William Arneson with his 4th win? We'll have to see there. In the pro class, meanwhile, well, today Kyle Roy has got away with a lucky escape, with Nathan Anster struggling, but he's got to be aware of the fact that Sean Connor is inching closer and Matthew Croft is on the rise. And as for the interclass, well, things are definitely starting to be levelled a little bit, as whilst Andrew Bentine may be the runaway leader, he's not running away as quickly as anymore when Robin Parry has just taken victory. And also the big question will be, how can some other drivers who are starting to find their form intermingle into the mix, including the likes of none other than Daniel Pays and Tom Wheeler. Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, come join us next time, as we'll be catching all the racing action from round number 9 as if it were live on Monday the 9th of March 2026. But until then, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.